You're fine. You're fine.
I'm hurrying.
It's just a workshop. So Jenny, if you want to go ahead and take roll.
Councilmember Thorson? Councilmember Peterson? Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here. Quorum is present. A motion to adopt the agenda? By Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Agenda is adopted, and we have 4 topics for tonight. And I'll turn it over to City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. First topic up is the water storage siting study. We have Morgan here from WSB to speak to us about that.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you.
Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So this workshop item before you here tonight is something that has been discussed off and on in terms of an update for council. The water storage siting study, which is in your packet in totality, so the full technical document is there. And we don't need to get into all the details, but I'm here to just provide a brief overview. I have a technical expert here, someone who actually has expertise in water storage towers and design and a lot of the analysis that goes into what is in the report. His name is Arsenio Puga with WSB and Associates. Arsenio actually did work on the plan. I think your signature is in there somewhere, right? Yep, okay. So we've got him for answering technical questions if the council does have any, what went into the study. Basically, the need for that study was driven by a fact that has been knowledge within the city since at least the 2008 comprehensive plan update. So that's 2 comprehensive plan updates prior to the one that we're working under right now, which is the 2040 comp plan. This would have been the 2030 comp plan, which was adopted by City Council in approximately 2008. And that was deficiency in terms of drinking water storage capacity within the city. And that deficiency is set by something that's called 10 state standards. So that's an adopted kind of standard by which cities develop their drinking water system and can determine what is the appropriate amount of storage that is needed within that city given a certain amount of demand or population, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had this shortfall in terms of how much storage we have, how many gallons of water can be stored within our water towers for the city of North St. Paul compared with the existing standards since at least 2008. So we've known that we need to add some storage. Now, the fact that we're short storage doesn't mean that we're running out of water. It's not kind of a dire situation that creates some sort of issue for the drinking water customers of North St. Paul or the city of Maplewood. We do serve portions of the city of Maplewood with drinking water. It just simply means that basically the wells that, or the pumps that run in the wells that supply the city, they're running a little bit more often than would be typically expected in terms of a standard setup for a city of the size of North St. Paul. So once, if this study is used as a point of reference moving forward, once a site is set, an option is selected from a capital improvement planning standpoint, a tower is planned and programmed within the future capital investment program for the city of North St. Paul. That will be a future improvement to the system. At this point, we've done enough work to evaluate different alternatives. There is a recommendation. There's also a site recommendation and an approach recommendation in terms of how we would potentially go about adding additional storage. So in really broad brushstrokes, the recommendation is for a 750,000 gallon elevated storage tank. And the site location recommendation is in Tower Park. Okay, so there's an existing water tower in Tower Park, hence the name there. It's smaller. And basically the recommendation in terms of how to add storage is to leave the existing tower online, construct this new tower at 750,000 gallon capacity, and then take the old one offline, whereas in another situation you might be having to take that out of commission and then put it up. So we have some ability to kind of work within the existing footprint of Tower Park. and hopefully not be very short on the storage while that construction would be happening. There's also an analyzation of the 50-year total cost of different types of water towers, a fluted column versus composite water tower. The recommendation is basically for the least expensive 50-year total cost, which is not just the design and engineering that goes into it, also the construction, but also the ongoing operations and maintenance. So every so many years, different types of materials need to be recoated, rehabilitated. If you look at that kind of 50-year cost for a composite water tower, it's actually less expensive than a fluted column water tower. So again, the recommendation is for using that Site 2, which is the Tower Park site, and the composite type of construction for the tower, which results in a 50-year total cost of just over $4.7 million. So those are the broad brush strokes. Do you have anything that you'd like to maybe just add before we go to questions, Ursi?
No, that was a pretty good summary. The only thing is, the main reason why the composite water tower and the fluted water towers vary so much in cost, even though we're building the same size water tower, is because typically a fluted column water tower uses about 2.5 times more steel than a composite. A composite water tower is, a lot of it, it's just concrete. So when it comes to rehabilitating that tower, with the fluted column, which has basically everything is made of steel, you're rehabbing the entire thing. So you're sandblasting, recoating, painting everything. Versus the composite, you know, I would say 80% of it is concrete that you don't touch. So you just touch that 20% of steel. And that's why, if you look at the table that's in the report, the numbers are quite significant between the two types of towers, even though they're the same size. So kind of the reasoning behind that.
So, yeah, typical standard practice to recoat or rehabilitate a steel tower would be every 15 years, 20 years?
15, 20, yeah.
15, 20, and with a composite, is it the same cycle? You're just,
This-
you have to do less.
The steel is the same, it's 15, 20. You're just doing 20% of the tower versus 100% of the tower, basically.
So your maintenance costs are significantly lower.
Yeah, and you might ask yourself, well, why aren't there more composite towers out there, you know, right? Because if they're cheaper to build and they're cheaper to maintain, right? But it's more of a newer style of water tower. A lot of the older ones have been steel, whether they're multi-legs like the one you guys have, or a single column with a tank on top. And because steel is so expensive to rehabilitate, you know, I'd say over the last 20 years, more and more of these composite ones have started to come into play, and that's why you guys don't have a composite one currently at the moment.
So with that, your engineers will stand for any questions the council might have. Again, there's no action here. You know, a potential next step, I guess, would be to fold this into a future capital improvement planning efforts, to pick a year. Oh, we should mention that staff did add this tower as a potential future placeholder within the state's drinking water revolving fund project priority list, so that in the future we could potentially take advantage of either state revolving low-interest loan funds, or now with the federal infrastructure package that is starting to be finalized now, what we're hearing through others is that the state of Minnesota anyway, is going to be using the drinking water and clean water revolving fund programs, existing programs as they are, to help deliver some of those federal dollars as they come down through into the state of Minnesota. So again, we're on this project priority list for a future water tower in the city of North St. Paul. We're on that list. There's another couple steps to go through if we are going to take advantage of funding opportunities, and there's no obligation to use those funds, but we simply have reserved the opportunity to do that when we get to that point. And I think there might be a little bit of a window time frame.
Yeah, so that's something big I wanted to emphasize. So the fact that your project is listed on this drinking water revolving fund, it doesn't mean that you have to request the funds to do the project. A lot of communities request funds, and then the project falls through because of many reasons, and the project, it's not built, it doesn't get built or designed or anything. So they give you a 5-year window from the time you apply to the time you want to request the funds. So essentially what happens is you send in an application, which you already did. It's like, a couple-page application. If you're approved because they see there is a need, they'll get you on the list. And then you have 5 years from that time that you get on the list to then send another application, which is another like 2 or 3 page application saying, hey, I want to request the funds to move on with my project. If you never send in that second application, after the 5 years, they just take you off of the list. And then if you want to get back in, you just have to reapply again. So we took the opportunity to do that because there's really no obligation to the city to move forward, but it's nice to be in that list should you want to do this next year or in 2 years or in 3 years, whatever, so.
You're saying, Morgan, that it's a grant, is it matching funds, or is it low interest, or what are you thinking?
So the basis of the program is low-interest loans, which, if you look at the loans that, typical obligation loans that you can get now for interest rate, they're pretty close to each other. But should those obligation loans, the interest rate for those start to rise, then the loans offered through the program are actually very attractive because they're around usually 1 to 1.5%, which is great. Now, they do have some restrictions as to, for example, the type of materials that you can use to build whatever project you're doing. So like something that comes to mind, like steel has to be American steel, for example, and they have other restrictions, but that's just one of them. What was the other part of your question?
Interest, low interest.
Oh, low interest, yeah, so.
As opposed to a straight grant.
Yeah, so it's a loan, it's not a grant. Now, however, what Morgan was saying through the funding that's coming in from the government, like he said, that's gonna be distributed through this drinking water revolving fund. So there's an opportunity that as that starts getting distributed, that may be a percentage of those funds could be an actual grant versus 100% of it be a loan, but we won't know until they finalize that.
And that's coming out when, anytime now, isn't it, or is it?
So, I think it's going to be several months before the states are able to talk to cities about what's the appropriate, channels, applications, how it's going to be distributed. So I think we'll know more in the next 3 to 6 months from the state of Minnesota. And frankly, there's portions of it that aren't even approved in Washington DC yet, right? So, it's going to take a while. Any other questions of your engineering staff?
I have a few, but go ahead, Councilmember Wong. Go ahead. So would this handle I'm looking at the graph here, and so that would accommodate for the M&I homes and all that? Is that kind of where the majority of that water is going?
So from a planning and capacity and demand standpoint, the sizing of the tower does take into account not only current population and current demand, but also future population and growth, which would include MI homes and things that have yet to occur as well. So
Because we talked about a tower down there
originally, right?
originally.
But so the storage, at least in the recommended site here, serves the development in the downtown area or in other parts of the city as well, too.
Good. Does that create more pressure for the pipes?
No.
No.
It does not. There was a component of the study that did look at the variation in pressures throughout the city and the drinking water network. So in the northern parts of the city, we have some lower pressure areas. Other parts of the city, I want to say kind of west bordering with Maplewood, they're higher pressure, and the intent of some of the engineering effort as we were looking at that was to see if there was a cost-effective way to separate the city into 2 different pressure zones. That is something that some cities do try to take advantage of if there's significant relief or elevation change, like a city like Duluth, for example, right? You might have multiple pressure zones because you can't You can't have just one set of water towers or one set of elevations of the water because the city is just at different levels, right? And North St. Paul is a much less extreme version of that. Everything that we have fits within standards, so our lowest pressure areas are within tolerances for a low pressure city system. Our high pressure areas are within tolerance for a high pressure system. We don't need any pressure booster pumps or pressure reducing valves for other customers. Some cities do need to look at those types of things. But what we wanted to look at is, again, is there a cost-effective infrastructure improvement that can happen within the city or be planned within the city to try to break things into pieces? We did look at it, and not every feasibility study says, yes, this is feasible. What we found is that it was not cost-effective to try to start separating the city into two separate pieces, right? Because it does function. There is low pressure and high pressure, and it is very costly to make these types of things, make these improvements where you're digging into streets and basically dividing something that was already planned to be one zone into two different zones, and you need to provide interfaces between those two zones from a pressure standpoint. So hopefully I'm explaining that well enough, but basically the result of looking at that was that it's recommended to stick with the pressure system that we have right now.
And just to add one thing, so what Morgan's talking about, it's Appendix D of this memo, that it kind of came about to be its own study, but it ended up being included as an appendix to this one. So if you want to read more into that, that's Appendix D of this memo. So.
Yep. One last question is, so we do have some litigation that's out in regards to White Bear, in regards to groundwater. If that was the case and we had to go to groundwater, that would totally change this whole plan?
So there's too many unknowns for myself or anyone, I think, to comment on that right now. Speculatively speaking, if the city of North St. Paul moved away from a groundwater drinking water source and towards a surface water
Yeah, so.
drinking water source, there still may be a need for the city to own and operate its own water main pipes and water distribution system and fire hydrants, and water towers is another component, right, of a water distribution system. So I think what you're asking is if, because of the White Bear Lake situation, if the city of North St. Paul moves away from groundwater, do we still need to build a tower to address this shortfall in terms of storage capacity? I don't have that crystal ball, but it's very likely that the city will still have a system that it needs to maintain regardless of the source of water. And even if one of the other things that was talked about was a connection to St. Paul Regional Water, which the city of Maplewood uses right next door, St. Paul Regional Water is not, at least at this time, and we've met with them to have this discussion with them to understand, they are not in the business of owning and operating networks, like taking over water towers or taking over the city of North St. Paul's water main pipes. In theory, if that transition were to occur because of the White Bear Lake situation, they might be a wholesale water supplier to the city of North St. Paul. But again, we still have to address our own water main breaks. We have to have our own water towers and our own infrastructure. So again, that's a situation that could feasibly happen where we shift away from groundwater, but we still need to build a water tower to address our shortfall in storage.
Okay. Any questions, other questions for Councilmember Thorson?
What's the current rehab schedule for that Tower Park water tower, do you know?
I think the next 4 or 5 years.
4 to 5 years is when we're looking at having to do what you're talking about, sandblast the existing paint and do some other internal work.
It may be it may be 3 or 4 years. I'd have to double check, but
It's coming up. It's coming up, yeah.
So that would probably be the time frame that we'd be looking at to get this involved.
Absolutely, yeah.
And I like the idea of being able to construct it on site where we're not having to take assuming in that case, Murphy's Law, we go through a drought and then everyone would be using excess water and then we have issues, but the idea that we can construct it in an existing site. I imagine too that this would be much taller than the existing water tower.
So it wouldn't be any taller. It would be large, it would be wider, because the way you can control the water pressure in a system is by elevating your water tower, right? Well, if we build a tower whose tank is higher than the existing tower, all of a sudden we're raising the pressures in the system, and we don't want to do that, right? So the top of the tank is going to sit at the exact same level of the existing tank. It's just going to be wider to be able to hold more water in it. Does that make sense?
This really reminds me of my physics classes or
Yeah.
whatever classes that
Pretty
was.
simple
chemistry
terms,
or
but-
whatever.
Water comes squirting out of the hose when
Yeah.
you raise it up out
Exactly.
of the.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Councilmember Thorson.
Just the reason I mention that is because, in seeing some of these composite towers, I guess just from driving by, they appear to be taller. Maybe some of them are, but that one in Tower Park, I think it's just designed differently and it has different aesthetics to the park that's there in the neighborhood, so I'm sure we're gonna have to do some notification of the neighborhood and let them know what the plan is and where it's gonna be located, what it's gonna look like, and get input.
Yeah, when we get to like, if we do kind of put this into a year placeholder for a specific year, I think, we'd need to go back 2 years prior to that, and we'd want to start engaging with the people that live around there. We have the ability to kind of create a 3D mock-up so people can see what the new one would look like sitting where it would sit when the old one is gone. So we can, manage some people's expectations who live around there, what it would look like. We can have, I've done this in other cities before, we're gonna have some good discussions about color, logo, which way do the logos face, right? I mean, people like to get into that and have some ownership with those kind of conversations. So we'd probably want to start on some of that, and that would also inform some of the design effort, I guess, in terms of putting together the bid documents for what would actually ultimately build it, 2 years after we would start. I think that's probably about the right timeframe.
Yeah, and what Morgan was saying about doing the 3D models and stuff, we can put different types of logos in. And actually our visualization department, and this is just a project that I just did, of a different water tower, they were able to do like a 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. kind of fast track as the sun is changing, how you can see the water tower and stuff like that. So we can do many things to try to communicate with the public, whatever it is we're trying to do. So, but I agree with the 2-year timeline. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it'll be a part of staff's future revisions or discussions on future CIPs that you'll look at in terms of what's the right year and how does that fit with the existing maintenance program. And I think what we've talked about here is all really good stuff. I think we agree with what you guys are saying, and
If we were to get grants, if they
yeah,
become
we
available,
would
we'd
want
have
to,
ultimate-
if we
go
can get
sooner
parts
than
of it
later
built for
than-
free,
I
absolutely.
got one question for you.
Yeah.
I'm still confused in regards to if we're at groundwater and we go to surface water. So surface water, to me, you're getting it out of probably a different municipality, or, because we're not creating our own surface water. This would come from probably our neighboring cities. And if we were to go to surface water, or had to go to surface water, you would not use your water towers anymore.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so you're correct. So not on the water tower part, so let me expand a little bit more. So if you go into surface water, typically it's because you have a river that's running right next to you. So Minneapolis, St. Paul have the Mississippi, right? You guys don't, right? So the option would be to, like Morgan said, purchase water on a wholesale basis, which a lot of communities in the Twin Cities do off of, possibly St. Paul regional water, right? So that's kind of a hypothetical scenario. What typically in these contracts, the way they're set up is that, yes, we'll provide you the water and this is how much we're going to charge you for the water, but you need to take care of your infrastructure. So you guys would still have your water rates like you do today, because you still need to cover water main breaks and water main replacements and water tower rehabs and stuff. In addition to that,
So we are still using the water towers.
correct,
So we're storing the water in the water towers, not from the ground, but from the surface.
from the surface,
Got it.
correct, yeah. And the reason for that is because as hypothetically, say, St. Paul Regional Water sells you water, they're gonna wanna make sure that you're not taking any of their storage capacity. They wanna make sure that you have enough storage capacity of your own, right? Because they have their own water towers to serve their own portion of the system, right? So that's why, even if you transition, there would still be a need for that slightly larger water tower, right? If that makes sense.
And that makes sense now, because I know St. Paul they've gotten rid of a lot of the water towers, but they are the source. Like Highland Park, haven't they gotten rid of water towers, or they still use those?
I don't think so.
I thought they decommissioned,
I think if they're.
or maybe it's the old water tower they decommissioned.
I think if they're decommissioning, the storage is something that is dictated by
still have the
population
water
and demand, right? So they might get rid of one, but they might rebuild another one and make it bigger than it was before to try to keep that storage number the same, which is similar to what we're talking about here. We're replacing a smaller tower with one bigger tower rather than just building a
Got it.
third one somewhere
Makes sense.
else, which saves on property acquisition and I guess property impact too. We're proposing a tower pretty much where there has been one all along.
One other
Councilman
question,
Person.
comment. Wasn't some of the CARES Act money, this was an allowable use for that, is to invest in your water infrastructure and things like that?
Yeah, that's my understanding, correct.
And then just, you know, my personal belief on this White Bear Lake lawsuit, I mean, I think the likelihood of us having to switch to surface water, being ordered to do that is low. But even if we did, there'd be another lawsuit to counter that, that would take, you know, probably just as long, if not longer, than this lawsuit's taken, which is getting close to a decade. So, I mean, obviously, you know, we wanna be mindful of that, but I don't envision us having to switch over to surface water anytime soon.
Oh, no.
And that also doesn't negate the fact that we still need to have storage capacity, so we still are gonna have to deal with this one way or the other.
Okay. Anything else on water towers? Did you need any other
Nothing further,
information
Your
from
Honor.
us, or
I'm sorry?
did you need anything else from us?
No, like I said, I think staff then will have some conversations over the next year to figure out where this might fit in a future CIP update for you to consider.
Yep. Okay. Is there any other questions, water towers? If not,
Just comment that perhaps the Arts and Culture Commission, in addition to planning, would like to see a little design. Yeah, I think they'd be interested in that.
Maybe that's a future agenda item for that commission, knowing that that's an opportunity. It doesn't have to be a logo or the name of the city, right? It could be anything.
Yeah, could be anything.
Like a snowman?
ah,
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I got one more.
City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next topic is the tax forfeiture parcel located up at Five Corners on 7th Avenue and 3rd. Morgan will be speaking to that.
Welcome, Morgan.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. So this was an item that just came up really quickly right before the packet was due. Ramsey County staff had contacted me. There's a depiction in your packet of a small, not buildable per our zoning code. I did check with the planners. Piece of property on the south side of the intersection of 7th Avenue and South Avenue and the 3rd Street cul-de-sac south of South Avenue. It's tax forfeit. The county notified itself because the county owns the property next door, so the next door property owners were notified that this is a tax forfeit parcel. There's gonna be an opportunity to bid on it on December 8th, which is, I think, tomorrow. The minimum bid, I believe, is $1,000. And the county said, we know that there's the potential for some intersection improvements. A potential roundabout is in your comprehensive planning documents. Are you interested? We think you might be interested. We think it might be a good thing to move forward with. And there might be the need for some future agreements to figure out who owns what, and they were willing to figure that out later between the city and the county. They just wanted to know if we were interested, so I said, yes, I think we're interested. I'll discuss it with the planning commission, which I did last week Thursday, discuss it with the city council here today. If the city council is in general agreement that we should see if we can get it, if it's available, I'll communicate with Ramsey County, and if the title can be acquired, then that's great. If it's not acquired, then at least we tried. So I think the opportunity in front of us is to work with Ramsey County to acquire that property through the tax forfeiture process. I don't have any, I said in the memo that they're looking into the procedures, and I haven't gotten any good information from them about what exactly happens, so what I know is what is in the memo right now. As I said, the minimum bid is $1,000. Tax assessed value on the property is $2,000. Even if it was slightly more than that, it would still be a very reasonable acquisition cost for some additional land that, even if a piece of the roundabout, for example, or road doesn't lie right on that property, it also provides some flexibility to potentially move some utilities into that area. We have Excel Gas has put those above ground regulating valve things that there have been some concerns or complaints about the noise that they make. Maybe as a separate item or in conjunction with roundabout construction, some of those things can be relocated or screened or housed if there's more room or more flexibility to be able to do things and get them out of the way of the street and street improvements. There's just a lot of opportunity for things that could happen if you have a little bit more, a little bit more than 1/10 of an acre of property to work with in that area. So that's why it seems a worthy thing to try to pursue.
So this came to us before, a couple of years ago, I believe.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yep, and at that time, the roundabout, I don't think we were talking about that as much, and like you say, a lot of the utilities up there, especially that big gas main, if we do need to move it, or like you say, some utilities, maybe we do need a little bit of property. To me, it kind of makes sense, because I think making that roundabout possibility, we might need it. And if we don't need it at that time, maybe we could, at that time, we'd go back or go back to or we just hang on to it.
Yeah.
It's, that piece of property it's a kind of a dead piece right there. So that's kind of my thinking, is that if we are going to do the roundabout, that potentially that could be a possibility of use for that. Any other council members? Councilmember Thorson?
So I guess anytime we're gonna acquire property, it's supposed to get reviewed by the planning commission. Sounds like that's been done. And what was their input?
They were in support of it.
Okay. And, a question I always ask is, well, what's the public purpose? What does this serve? And it sounds like it's for utility easement or utility right away, or?
I would say utility and transportation right
Okay.
away, yep.
And, so what you're looking from us is a yes or no, and then what a maximum bid price would be that we're willing to go forward and.
I think so, because I didn't really get any clarity from the county. That would be tough for you guys. I mean, you don't have any appraisals or anything. To me, I think that you know, even $5,000 would seem to be extremely reasonable. Just my own personal experience with acquiring easements, not even just fee title property, but easements for improvement projects. So I would say if you're not comfortable giving me a number, that's okay. If you would rather do that, I think that's perfectly acceptable, and I'll take that direction, certainly. So, but I can't all I can tell you is that, again, the minimum bid is 1,000. The tax assessor value, according to Ramsey County, is 2,000 approximately. And possibly some number, you know, greater than that would still be of a value too. Now, we
This is not.
haven't talked about a source of funds for this, so that's another kind of quagmire. What Ramsey County has said is that they are perfectly fine working out the details with the city later as a separate process. We don't need to, you know, pay them now or supply that bid. That's my understanding. They're willing to try to handle this on their own because they do own the adjacent property. They also own right-of-way immediately adjacent, meaning South Avenue is a county road. So I don't think you need to give me direction on a max price.
What's the adjacent property? Is that 17?
It's Lot 1, which is a triangle, which actually the 3rd Street cul-de-sac sits on top of right now. So they own the property that our city street cul-de-sac is on top of, which is an interesting situation. I'm not too sure how that occurred.
I'm looking at numbers here. I look at 17, and then there's a 60. I don't know if that's the same, what you're looking at?
Are you looking at the map in the packet on the second page 2 of the staff memo?
Yes.
So the red numbers are the lot numbers. So looking at the 3rd Street cul-de-sac.
Oh, one,
So
okay.
lot
one.
number 1 is currently owned by Ramsey County. Lot number 2, which is highlighted in red, is what we're currently talking about. And then lots 3, 4, 5, that's privately held property to the west, to the southwest.
And does Lot 1 covers that whole street?
Well, about a third of the cul-de-sac circle.
Am I seeing it?
It's a small triangle.
Just that little piece there.
Yep.
Sides. It runs from this corner to this corner.
So could I ask a clarification question?
Mm-hmm.
So this property that's highlighted in red currently is not owned by the county?
Correct. It's owned by
It
the,
says on this, it says owner name, State of Minnesota Trust exempt Ramsey County tax forfeiture land.
correct.
So that just means it's privately owned right now and it's going into tax forfeiture.
Correct.
And the
I
county.
think it's no longer privately owned. I think it's in tax forfeiture. And the options are to provide the first right of refusal of purchase to the adjacent property owner.
Okay, so that's why Ramsey County is reaching out to us. They're saying, hey, if we buy this, would you be interested in potentially acquiring it? Okay.
It probably
So-
sits in a portfolio.
So we don't need to give you, yes, and, $2,000 is the max bid. That's not.
I think they would have told me that's what we need.
Because my concern would be that if the neighbor's interested and all of a sudden he's getting in a bidding war with the city, why would we, other than, the points you've made, because then we're taking on the responsibility to maintain the property and if it doesn't ever, if nothing comes of this to move the existing pipes from Excel or to incorporate the roundabout, now we've got another piece of land that's not really buildable that we're responsible to maintain when potentially the neighbor might want it. So I guess, I'm personally okay with, giving Ramsey County the nod that we might be interested, but I guess we'll see how the bid goes, because maybe if they don't even get it, then it's kind of moot point.
Is this a buildable lot?
No. It is not buildable
Okay.
by zoning code.
Everybody all comfortable with that?
Yeah, I am. I used to work down there, so I kind of know how it works. And it's an auction and, whatever. But, yeah, I'd be willing to, or interested in it, obviously. So, I don't want to get anybody
So we'll give you the green light, go ahead.
Okay. Sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I'll provide a future update to you
Okay.
after the results of the bids are in.
City Manager Randall.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up for topic is 2022 municipal fee schedule and utility rate schedule. I think before we jump into that, I'd like to just acknowledge Dan a little bit here. He came here new to the city, been here a few months. He's been dealing with several different software programs that we have. We jumped right into the budgets. He's done a great job. I've never seen him without a smile on his face. He's just really done well, and I just would like to acknowledge that, and I really appreciate it.
We know how difficult a position it was jumping in too, because it's, like you say, you jump into a budget cycle, thank you. You are doing a great job.
With that, I will turn it over to our finance director to discuss the fees.
Thank you very much, Edwards, interim city manager, Brian. And thank you, mayor and council members. It is the city council's responsibility to establish fees and rates for permits, licenses, and services that are provided by the city of North St. Paul. Annually, the city staff reviews those rates, makes some recommendations and suggestions of making adjustments to those rates and fees. This is the proposed fee schedule and utility rate schedule, and there are some increases that are there. My understanding is that there has been no increases for the past 4 years. There's three things that this municipal schedule and utility rate schedule accomplishes. First of all, I want to give a lot of kudos to many staff members in the city for collaborating on trying to get this done and making suggestions and looking at costs that are associated with the different fees that are established in this document. And I actually, on the community development side, Cynthia did a tremendous job, Jill, Lisa. We had the police department that actually had some rates that were never even incorporated within this document in the past. And so Phil, our chief of police, brought those to our attention, so we incorporated those. Carrie's been absolutely instrumental on this document. And so, and then we've had, in the finance, Barb and Jackie helping out with determining some of the rates and the impacts that those rates would end up having to the residents. And so there's three accomplishments that the rates do, and it's trying to make consistent rates. There were some rates that were, on the permitting sides where there were 60, 65. They tried to make them consistent as much as possible. Including, and then include all the charges. I gave the reference to what the police department had brought to our attention, that there were some rates and fees that they were charging that were never incorporated into this document. And then the second, there's a kind of a universal increase in technology fee from $10, currently at $10 to $15. When we stop and we kind of think about that, the technology fee doesn't generate a great deal of money. It's in the budget in 2022 at $14,500. If you were to raise that by that $5, it would generate an approximately, $7,000 additional income. But what it really does is it starts to look at and emphasize that the technology fee that's being charged is really kind of more on a principle standpoint, that technology is really the way that we communicate with the residents of the city, that we really should be investing in technology is a way to minimize the increases in staff and efficiencies that we can attain. I do have a quick little story that on December 1st, I think everybody's aware that the parks become available to be rented for the upcoming year. Before the software program that is in existence today, it would have required additional staff to come in, be there 8 o'clock in the morning, ready to go, and we'd end up having a line of people. With the software, comes at midnight on December 1st, people are able to start booking online. And I think this was probably one of the records that there was over $16,000 that was generated in that first day by you know, booking of the fees. Part of that is due to, you know, the change again of putting a deposit down on some of the park rentals. But it virtually did not require any input from any staff. There were a couple of, you know, we had one resident who booked it twice. So we'll end up having to produce a refund for that individual for that second reservation. But the point is that technology can make the city more efficient and not require as much staff time being involved. And so I really think that the technology fee proposal to be increased from 10 to 15, again, won't have a significant impact on those who are utilizing those services, but it really does say to the city that, hey, we do need to put more money into our technology, and this is just a small piece in which we can try to generate some more revenue to do that. And then the third impact that we're seeing here is that of the enterprise funds, all of the rates are staying the same except for the electric rate. And Brian wears two hats now. He's as the interim city manager and also is still involved overseeing the electric department. And he got information from the utility that there was going to be a 2.5% increase in the consumption component of electricity. I think everybody's aware. I think NSP has got like a 14% proposal increase. They'll probably end up getting through, as they go through the PUC, they'll probably end up getting probably an interim rate increase of somewhere around that 8 to 9% component. So utilities are going up. You know, we see that on a continuous basis. So on the consumption part in the rates, we've got the rates increased 2.5%. What does that mean as an impact to an average residential home? That means about a $20 per year increase on that 2.5% increase. Again, thanks to fantastic staff to be able to run those estimates out. Barb in the finance and the utility provided that estimate for that. So we can definitely, I can share the screen and we can kind of go through the document itself. It's got redlined the changes that are being proposed. And let me see. I think in the opening pages, all you're going to see is number changes to make sure that they're matched up, and I think I've got them all correct now. So again, on the and we can definitely catch on that one. On animal fees, there was a change in the technology fee from that $10 to the $15. Building permits, pretty much everything on this page number 2 stayed the same, with the exception again of the technology fee changing from $10 to $15, and also an additional note that says no refunds issued for permits under $45 before the technology fee is applied. And some of these are consistent with some of the practices that are being done today in the community development section. So that's why it was really good to have this collaborative effort and everybody viewing and looking at all of the rates to make sure that we're being consistent with how we're serving the residents of the city. Again, the technology fees is the only change on page 4 of the document, page 66 of the printout. And then in permit fees, to be consistent, sheds, driveway fences, retaining walls are all being changed to be $65. 3 of those were at 60 prior to that. The addition of the words new for toilets and then new for sinks for clarification, on the plumbing permit section. Mechanical permit, there's a new item that's being added called a magic pack. My understanding, that's kind of like a combination of air conditioner and furnace. Don't know mechanically enough about that, but that was brought, that should be the same as the furnace.
So if they're being installed at the same time?
Yeah, kind of combined.
Rather than one for each one?
Yeah. And then it's bringing those rates being consistent to $65. And then if there's something that's being missed that's not clarified underneath the mechanical permit, then it would be other. And again, it would be that $65. As we move to the other, next page where it has commercial fees, there's plumbing minimum, mechanical minimum, and really the valuation-based fees that are below are really how the costs are actually determined. With that, and there's already a minimum that's there as $80.55, so the $95 being removed and referring back to the valuation-based fee calculation that's on the bottom of page 6 of the document. Again, on the next page, the demolition permit fees, and it's based on valuation, removal of the minimum fee of $100. And then there's an add cell tower permit, city permit fee, $12.50 plus the tech fee. Again, just after page 8, going on to 9, the technology fees changing. You're going to see that consistent through the document. It's been changed from the 10 to the 15. Business license, the amusement park showcases and circuses, first days, been changed to 500. Each additional day is 100. Again, there's a note on the bottom that technology fee is added to all licenses.
So if I was to have a circus, it'd cost $500?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Can you speak to it's like maybe 4 times the cost than it was before?
I actually cannot speak to why the change onto it. It can definitely have staff review that and make a comment back to it. Did we lose my connection here?
You lost your screen share.
So again, this fee is done by ordinance, so there still will be a final approval that will be necessary in early January, so I definitely will get an answer at that final approval.
What was the question, Councilmember Wong?
It increases basically fourfold.
About fourfold, so.
So we'll find out why there was that significant change from 125 to 150. Or 500, I'm sorry, yes. And the same with each additional day is the same thing from 25 to 100. So we will have an answer for you on that. And then we have on the massage enterprise, per employee, new is 2,000, renewals 150.
I'm just curious, do we have a lot of peddlers that come in for licenses?
Just a few. During the pandemic, we didn't issue any peddler permits. There was just a couple that got issued this summer.
And then on the next page, contractor license, General contractor from 80 to 70. No fee for licensed plumber from 60 to 70. Again, to make the things consistent. On the electrical charges for installation of electric service was an add of $6 per foot for frost charges. And then on the lighting service governmental units, each one of the 100 watt, 250 watt, 400 watt was changed, increased by 50 cents. The word minimum was added to other electrical charges underneath the commercial and industrial for deposits. And then solar service application was added at $100. Equipment charges all stayed the same. Fire department fees all stay the same. Again, adding that technology fee. And then the just removal of the $1 to $500, and then changing the next one from $1 to $2,000. A little bit more clarification. It still means the same. You're going to pay that $28.05 for the first $500. It's already written in there, so it was kind of redundant. There's an ad plan review fee of 65% of the valuation for both residential commercial projects. And then there's fire department lock boxes that have been added to the rate sheet, which have currently been being charged. Again, on the miscellaneous fees, there's an technology fee. In addition, on the Buckthorn Polar Deposit 5-day rental was added, $100, and then clarification for deposit/build if not returned in 30 days. And there may be, Brian just brought to my attention on these parks and recreation fees, these were what were approved earlier this year. We need to make a clarification. He brought, because obviously you can see that on Casey Lake, the resident versus non-resident, resident's actually higher than the non-resident. I don't think that that's correct, so we'll end up having to make sure that we get that corrected before it actually gets published. I'm just making a note of that. And then the rest of the rates should be what was approved by the Parks Commission and the City Council earlier this year. They're just being incorporated into this document. Planning and zoning fees all stay the same. Except for the variance request from residential, changing from $200 to $250 on the application fee. And then you can see in the police department fees, this is lining up with what they're already charging residents today, and incorporating some other fees that they have for color digital photos, 911 audio file, 911 transcript, squad video, body worn camera, and their fees are there. And then there's been a change to put in the police officer at, it was at actual, and our police chief has kind of looked at what the average cost with benefits, of officers, and so has inserted in there $90 per hour, which also incorporates the use of the vehicle, and $150 on holidays. And then underneath the public work fees, the public street improvements, since the city is no longer at this point in time doing assessments, we're just removing those fees off of the document.
Quick question on the police department photograph. Is that for, can you do like passport, or is it, if you get arrested and you get a picture, or is it, do people come in and get a picture taken for their? It just says photographs, and it's $40. Unless it's,
I think
Maybe if-
all of these charges are more related to if there's a police incident.
that's,
and,
okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
you're requiring a, there's a colored.
An accident or something.
Yes,
You
correct.
can request a picture or whatever. Okay. It's not your picture, $40 for the chief, or,
$5 wouldn't be enough for.
Yeah.
that. If it's autographed, then it's worth quite a bit more.
looking for the police calendar here.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question on that public works fees there. I mean, the council voted back in 2019, I think it was, because of the 2020 street project to do away with that. And I thought that year we removed all this from the fee schedule. Are you saying that this just continued on? Okay, so now we're officially scrubbing it from the fee schedule, even though action was taken in 2019 to.
Correct. And that's where part of what was being accomplished through this was to kind of clean it up and make sure that things were more consistent and that we were hopefully getting all of the charges at the city. So we had one consistent document that we could publish. And that was actually, and that's where, again, a lot of staff involvement to make sure that we were being consistent. And that's what the practices were, and especially when we're utilizing software programs now that actually are doing a lot of this stuff for us instead of our manual calculations, that we make sure that this is consistent with what has been put into the software programs themselves.
In regards to the police department fees, under squad, the last item, there's just a small typo. It's really, the release is spelled wrong.
Yes, it is.
Sorry, just a small little thing there.
That will be corrected. And then on the right-of-way permits, they were added for residential trenching for the various components on there. And then you see like the as-built fee of $250, that's been being charged to date. It just has not been on the fee schedule itself, so we're just making sure that this document is as comprehensive as possible. And then there's some more additions of radio readers for water service, replace damaged radio receivers, putting in the different size meters and the charges that are associated with those. Again, incorporating charges that are already out there, but just have not been into this and fully adopted by the city council in the same document. And then there's an after public works services fee of $240 if there ends up having to be call-in staff after business hours. And then we come to the electric rates, and you'll see that those consumption rates have been increased 2.5%. Garbage rates stay the same. Surface water rates stay the same. Wastewater rates stay the same. Water rates, there was just a typo that had been in the document on the Maplewood Water Service. It was listed as 2108. It really should be 1207. So that's being corrected. And then down below it was at 1208, should be 1207. And there was a 7 that was missing on the last digit in that decimal. And that is all of the changes for, that are incorporated into the municipal fee schedule and utility rate schedule. And And any questions, thoughts, concerns?
Councilman, or comments?
Well, I mean, I think some of this ties into the discussion we're gonna have in the enterprise fund, so I guess I'll just wait to comment at that point. I would like to state, though, that I'm against the continuation of the streetlight fee. I understand we've had discussion about that in the past, and I understand where electric department is saying there's a reason for the fee. I just think that it adds complexity to the bid in the rate that we charge. You know, we're kind of late in the game here to have a discussion about that kind of stuff. It's December 7th, and we're looking to approve this, but I, hope that maybe once the new city manager's on board, we can have continued discussion about simplifying the bill and looking at something like that, getting rid of it.
And I would agree that, this new city manager coming in, taking a look at it all this. So,
In terms of the garbage rates, I see that the recycling rates are consistent, and you can all help me, but yeah, they're all consistent regardless of the volume. I would think that we would want to incentivize our residents to recycle more. And perhaps there's more context to it, but just something for us to think about as we look at new rates is how to incentivize our residents to recycle more.
So are you saying look at reducing the rate to help encourage more recycling?
Yeah, and maybe perhaps in, when you reduce your garbage waste, you might recycle more. So kind of how does that work in tandem with the garbage rates? Just something for us to consider. Thank you.
Well, Councilmember Wong, you make a very good point. I mean, part of, I think, the next level that needs to be looked at is when you're looking at any types of rates, what is your overall strategic approach? What are you trying to accomplish? The same type of thing can go from energy consumption, where, your rate structure can, promote people to be more conservative, either that or there's a higher rate that gets established to some degree. But we also have to balance it between looking at what is a reasonable or average consumption, and really it's in certain ways the structure then ends up penalizing those who are above and beyond that norm, and to kind of hopefully force in a way, conservation initiatives within the city itself. So yeah, very, very good point.
Just a little comment on that,
Thorson.
just to provide a little more context. I think, real quick, the part of the decision, when we switched haulers, the rates significantly fell for everything, but the recycling, on the face of it, looked like it doubled, but we went from recycling being collected every 2 weeks to being collected every week. I think that was part of that thought process of, well, if we can encourage people to recycle more, if it's being picked up every week, and, establishing that rate, we certainly could say, well, it's only $1, or we could even say it's free to recycle, but then, where do you move that cost? You move it to the trash, and then the trash rates are subject to the solid waste tax and the county environmental charge tax. So I think that was part of the reason why we set it at that level, but it was also supposed to be reviewed on an annual basis because the unknown factor was the tipping fee, and that's just strictly based off of how much trash and tonnage is being produced citywide. So ideally, someday, these trucks will have some sort of capability. I know some of them do, and I think there's some in Denver, at least they tried it for a while. They can weigh the trash as they're picking it up, and then you get billed as a consumption, just like water and electricity. But in the meantime, this isn't a perfect system. We've established these rates, and just constantly reviewing those and our fund balance and things like that, I think will help kind of get us closer to that. But I think I agree with you that there's certainly ways to incentivize less wasteful trash by having those rates higher versus recycling or reusing products.
So if there's no other questions or comments, there's some revisions that will be made. We'll get an answer for January on the amusement. We'll take care of release, correctly spelled out. Make sure that the park building rates, residential, non-residential, are accurate before it actually gets published out. And then there's, for in the future, looking at streetlight fees and recycling fees and so forth. And I think that there needs to be, with the new city manager, looking at the whole fee structure and so forth. But again, very encouraged by the collaboration from staff around the city and helping put together this document for your review and consideration.
Okay. I think you might want to just jump right into the enterprise funds then.
And in the enterprise funds, you have seen all of the budgets, and were provided already in the past, the line items. The only thing that has changed since your past review, obviously, was increase in expenditures and an increase in revenues on the electrical side due to the 2.5% increase on the consumption side to it. What I would like to pull up is to a question that has been raised on a number of occasions is really the discussion on fund balance. And I was really hoping I can find I handed out a document. Handed out a document today that takes kind of a higher level look at the fund balances for the enterprise funds. Again, we have Baker and Tilly working on those fund balances. Yeah, that's it. So you'll also see it on the screen. And so going back to the last audited year, which is for the fiscal year that ended December 31st of 2020, the fund balance is really looking at, there's an overall net position, and then there's a net investment in capital assets, and really you need to take that net investment in the capital assets out. Basically, that's where on an annual basis, it'll be, if you were to purchase no other capital assets, that would eventually be depleted. It's actually your depreciation expense. And so over time, what that ends up doing is it's gonna, once the net investment in capital assets is gone, it ends up reverting back to what your net position is. So for right now, I've taken it out in the illustration here to show you what your fund balance is of unrestricted as of December 31st of 2020. And then looking at it purely from a budgetary standpoint, and the budget that was approved by the City Council in 2021, and the budget that's being proposed to be adopted later this evening for the 2022, and then showing what an estimated fund balance, if everything was on budget, both expenditure and revenues, what the fund balance would be as of the end of 2022. And you can see the fund balances are all very healthy, with the exception of fiber optics, and we've known that for a while, that's been in the negative, and it's slowly, probably take another 30 years for it to finally break to the break-even point, but you know, there is a plan that's in place to make that. So when we first look at a fund balance and we say, wow, our fund balances are fantastic, I want to caution everybody, because part of the reason for a fund balance in an enterprise fund is it's an ongoing concern. And what that means is that there's another year of business, there's another year of business, and it keeps on going, it keeps on going. There's other needs that are there. Part of the needs that we've identified, and so what I've done is I have a different category down here that shows some additional changes to the fund balance that'll be coming up in time. One, we've adopted, and it'll be asked to be adopted one more time because there's another change to the CIP from 2022 to 2031. The 2022 amount's already included in the 2022 budget. So from 2023 to 2031, those are your expenditures that are going to come out of those respective funds for vehicle and equipment and utility infrastructure preservation. So right away, you're already starting to draw down that fund balance. There's already a plan that's out there that'll be incorporated into those annual budgets. And then there's two other components that I've got highlighted because those are part of what is going to be part of that Baker-Tilly and that what-if scenario that we're going to play out. And one is, what's the change in debt payments? If we were to bond no other money in our utilities, which we're already planning on doing in this upcoming in 2022, if, you know, those debt payments would drop if we were to issue no more debt and eventually be zero. If we have a plan that we're going to build additional infrastructural needs and we're going to be bonding, then we're going to add debt to that. So that number needs to be filled in there to what that cost is going to be. And then annual depreciation, like I've already said, I've just totally just added that back because over time, when everything's fully depreciated, that'll increase your unrestricted fund balance. And then the other unknown in there is the change in that position from an operating budget. So that's, again, that Baker-Tilly what-if scenario and tool will help us do. And what does that mean? We'll be able to look at, is there a need to adjust rates? We already know that cost of living will change our expenditure side to it. We'll see it in our salaries. We'll see it in our cost of goods sold. We'll see that continuously moving. We can put in escalators in there to make assumptions of whether it's a 2.5%, 3% escalation on those various components, and be able to determine layered in with what our capital expenditure plans are that are identified here to find out, are these fund balances really, really healthy, or are they not? Or does it require us to change our rates? Right now, just without those other two components, again, you can see that we're relatively healthy in our fund balance. Again, we need those other two planning tools. And that's where I always was kind of cautious, saying I didn't want to bring this information, until we had the tool totally set. But it's been asked on a number of occasions, and so there's nothing wrong with showing where we're at. But you can see the funds, you can see the water will dip down on a negative over the next 10 years based upon the information that's provided here. Obviously, that would be escalated to some degree when we start escalating our expenditures, because expenditures always go up. Again, whether it's personnel costs, whether it's the cost of goods that we're purchasing. So somewhere down there may be a look at how do we change our water rates. Electric is sitting pretty good at approximately 3.6 million. We've got surface water that's sitting very healthy at 3.8. We've got wastewater at 1.9. Again, we'll skip over fiber optics, but obviously the fund balance is going to get much better, in time. And then you can see solid waste that has virtually no capital expenditures, no other infrastructural things. So the fund balance didn't change, which is sitting at about $678,000 to date. That's where that recommendation to utilize that $650,000 of those funds was made earlier in the year, but then we've kind of pulled that back regarding the community center. So that's kind of where that component came from. As you can see, right now today, and at least for the near future, we're sitting actually very good in our enterprise funds. Again, that study, in that tool, that Baker Tilly, we will, as a group, and with the city manager, we will get into looking more in depth at our rates, at our expenditures, and as we develop our plans to the future. We've heard earlier tonight about the potential of another tower. There's could be some possibility of some additional funding sources. I believe we do have the tower in our capital plan. If it's not, might be a different one. I think it was out there for,
Yeah, I think that was a placeholder. I don't think it's been updated for the more recently estimated numbers that are in the study, but I think you're right. Yeah.
at least we had a placeholder, at least for the capital costs component, using 3.7 million for 2022 as a placeholder. So that's part of what's driving that water to be showing as a negative at this point in time, because that's a huge expenditure. Now, we can look at how we want to do it. That would be if we were to actually expend it all out of the fund. Obviously, we could defer that and push it out a little bit longer if we were to bond for the water tower, and/or if we were to get some grants, or if the loan was at a better interest rate than we can do for bonding, which again, we'll find out as time moves on. So all in all, our enterprises are actually doing very good right now. And next year, we will do a greater in-depth look. And now I'll open it up for any questions, comments.
So Dan, when they look at yearly bonding in regards, is this one of the areas that they look at in regards to our rating?
Absolutely. It contributes in two different ways. One, we don't want to have funds with negative balances. So they always ask us a question about the fiber optics, and we always have to kind of give them an explanation of, even though it's out there quite a ways, but we have to give them kind of an explanation of what we have a plan in place, and it'll eventually be positive by such and such a date. The other component that it heavily contributes is because obviously there's cash on hand. And so the city has a pretty good cash availability, that's on hand, which actually looks very good for the city when we go for our bonding. Again, remember the bond rating that we got, we were at a AA, is, hard to move that up. There's only two components that are, one component that's really underneath our control, and that's because of the size of the city, that if we were not to bond as much in debt, however, we've got to balance that between the infrastructural needs that are in the city, so we're kind of stuck into that. And then the other part of it is just because of the median income of the city and the residents that are here, that plays against us in our rating.
Any other questions for Dan? Councilmember Thorson?
Yeah, I know we're got about 2 minutes here, I suppose. So I'm grateful that we at least got to begin to have this discussion. I wish we'd have more time. A couple of quick points I'd just like to make here on the reasoning why I'm bringing up this fund balance discussion, why I think that's important. I think that kind of guides us on decisions that we make into the future, right? And I'm looking at it from a margin perspective, ideally, I would hope to see our enterprise funds, or at least our electric utility fund, kind of run like a co-op where, we've got all the expenses, we know costs, we've got a set margin that we want to make, and then we determine our rates based off of how we performed on that. That would ultimately lead to consistency. Now, some people may not agree with this assessment, but I think it's certainly fair to say that our electric enterprise fund has been used as just a money jar to pay for things like the fiber optic fund and the community center, and things that retroactively looking back, we can say, well, that probably wasn't the best decision to make now financially, and and it provides very little to no public benefit now versus when it was envisioned back in the day. But rough estimate, our electric fund balance would probably be, fair to say, at least double what it is now if we didn't go down into those endeavors, financing the public or the former community center, and not only the initial construction but the continued operation. And then this fiber optic fund that, they're launching satellites into space to provide high-speed internet now, So, that's where I think, you know, like tonight, we were told initially that fees were gonna stay flat. I mean, when I looked at this and saw there was a 2.5% increase in the electric rates, I kind of assumed, well, rates are going up, there's inflation, it's probably tied to our wholesale prices are going up. Is that a fair assessment to say we're trying to match the wholesale price? Okay. So that's used as a reason to raise the rates. But if we've overbilled our customers for decades, like we have in the solid waste fund, I think it's a fair assessment to say there's no need to have $685,000 in a fund that's essentially a pass-through. We don't have any expenses laid out there because other than some staff time to do with billing and customer service, which again is our decision to do, this is a pass-through operation 100%, but because of all these years of adding other fees on that we have the ability to do to finance things that are not related to residential trash, we've built up a balance that, you know, what do we do with it? A couple months ago, we were proposing transferring $600,000 of it to help pay for some repairs in the community center. So it just, I think, you know, it would be nice to spend a little more time, and hopefully when we have the new city manager on board, maybe this is a workshop that we can have early on in ahead of the next year's budget, where we can kind of try as a council to see, well, do we want to just keep doing the way things we've done in the past, or do we want to try to have a path or a clear direction of why is it we're doing these things? And we can always we can compare Excel Energy. I know a lot of people naturally do, but it's hard to compare Excel Energy to our utility, right? I don't necessarily think that's a good thing to just do. Well, Excel's raising rates, so we should too. If we're gonna raise rates, we should be doing it for a specific reason. And like you point out, you know, our fund balances tie into our bond ratings, and it's important to make sure that they're healthy. Now, it's great that they seem to be healthy, but I don't know if we have that true assessment yet, and that's something that needs to be looked at on a regular basis as well. But to help us as a city into the future make these decisions, I think establishing a you know, a fund balance goal, doesn't have to be an exact dollar amount, but, you know, we have it in the general fund. Is it 35%? Yeah, and for many years we were under that. Now we're at that. That certainly helps. And we got, you know, 1 minute here. So, I mean, I think the theme here is a work in progress. I appreciate the work you've done and staff has done to put this together, and looking forward to future discussion.
And I think that's right. I mean, we got to get, Baker Tilly's going to do the study. You know, we've talked about that this year. You're a new finance director. We have a new city manager coming in. So I think, you know, 2022 is going to be a lot of workshops and getting to know our new systems that we're implementing also.
No, absolutely, and I look forward to those conversations. I think they're going to be fantastic conversations to have. I kind of want to leave you with one final little thought that's in there. You know, our budgets, and historically, they've actually come down, at least the last 2 years. They've been out there as such, with the exception, because there's a small transfer from HRA and the EDA, which are all included in the budgets that you're going to be approving later. There's $820,000 that gets transferred. The majority of it, I'll say $790,000 of it, is being transferred from your enterprise funds into your general fund. So we're going to have some very interesting conversations. That's $790,000. Your other avenue in which to get that, and we'll see that when we do the truth and taxation presentation, is to levy it. And that $790,000 is going to end up being approximately a 15% increase in your levy. So those are some considerations that we're going to have to take, and to take that balancing act into why some of those components, and we're looking at the rates that we establish and so forth. But I absolutely am open to any discussion, and Councilmember Thorson, you bring up some very, very, very good points. And so I'm actually looking forward to next year and having these discussions and having that tool to be able to play those what-if scenarios and get you the right information with the new city manager so we can make some very good decisions moving forward.
Turn over to interim manager Frandl. Any other?
And that's it for
That's all we got? All right, so motion to adjourn the workshop.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? Not. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned, and we'll take about a 5-minute break. We need one of those things that come. Yeah, stand up. If we could all stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I'd like to welcome everybody. The weather's finally changed to winters. The last couple of days have been pretty cold out there, and I think we're in for a long winter. Jenny, if you take the roll.
Councilmember Thorson?
Here.
Councilmember Peterson? Here. Councilmember Wong?
Here.
Councilmember Cole?
Here.
Mayor Furlong?
Here, quorum is present. This time, motion to adopt the agenda, but I'd like to, if I could, move item E under, or item F under city business and move it to the front of A, just because we have someone here that doesn't have to wait the whole meeting to handle that. So if I can move her up to item A, that'd be good. Not, if that's okay, motion to adopt the agenda.
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. At this time, we do have one presentation, and I'd like to welcome up Adam Sidler from North Haven Church, if you can come up to the podium, and also our police chief. And we have a little program that was started by North Haven Church with Adam, and maybe make a few comments in regards to what's going on.
We just met earlier.
Welcome.
Good to see you. So yeah, we have been talking with Mayor Furlong for a while now, and talking about how it is that we can mobilize our faith organizations in the community to help meet all the desperate needs that are in our community. Be more tangibly aware and involved and invested. And so this is just one aspect of what it is that we're hoping to be able to do in the months and years to come. But what we did is we mobilized as many churches as we could over the course of the last month, and specifically Premier Bank. I know some people think of banks as a church, but
At the last minute, we threw that in there.
Christ Lutheran Church, St. Peter's, North Haven, of course, Redeeming Love, and North Presbyterian have all donated money, $2,500 to be exact, $2,500, and put them in form of Cub gift cards that we wanted to be able to equip police officers with, and we hope to be able to maintain this so that you guys, I mean, you're on the front lines, and you're interacting with people that we don't always see, you know, on a day-to-day basis, and for you to be able to have a tangible means to be able to bless people, especially over this Christmas season. You know, that we wanted to gift that to you and to your officers, and so you can gift others. So
Greatly
yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, thank you
Thank
very
you very
much.
much.
Yeah.
I just want to say, I mean, you mentioned it, absolutely, we have the ability as police officers to meet people in all different walks of life, including those in the greatest need, and this will absolutely help us help them this time of year. So
Awesome.
Greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, you bet.
Thanks again.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks.
So,
Sorry.
and maybe Adam, just mention kind of what's been going on the last year in regards to the churches and how you've communicated and how you've gotten organized a little bit over the last year.
Yeah, you know, we're inching more and more to developing those relationships. So now I've been a senior pastor here at this church, now North Haven, for 2.5 years. I picked the right time, right, to lead a church in the midst of COVID. But many churches are aware of the needs that exist in our community. But churches can often feel like, faith organizations can feel kind of like alone and isolated. And so what we're trying to do is band together in a way and not only let each other know that we're there, but figure out tangible ways that, like I said, we can address these needs. So we are in the process of developing an opportunity for faith leaders in our adjacent community to come together, hopefully in February of 2022, to begin not only introducing ourselves to one another, develop those relationships, but also talk about, okay, what are the needs in our community? How are we as individual churches addressing these needs? And then how much greater can we be advocates for change in this community by banding together? And what would that look like? So I'm really excited. Mayor Furlong has been a great advocate and helping me mobilize this as well. And we're just hoping for connection and interest and excitement and making a difference. So, yeah.
Thank you. Look forward to the relationship. And now you met the police chief, and
Never thought the day would come.
so thank you. And I know it's going to be a good program, during this time, this season. So thank you. So at this time, the consent agenda, and that is the November 16th workshop minutes, the November 16th regular meeting minutes, the November 16th HRA meeting minutes, the November 16th closed meeting minutes, the November 18th special meeting minutes, general claims of $916,469.89, the HRA claims of $44,851.77, the city manager employment agreement, the 2022 city council meeting calendar, the North Suburban Access Professional and Technical Services Agreement, the police vehicle replacement CIP funds, the notice to declare dog non-dangerous, the records management system replacement in City Hall amplifier for emergency communications, the police vehicle agreement in Dakota County Technical College, approved the termination of the financial suite software services under the OpenGov contract, building permit report for November 2021, the resolution approving acceptance of donations received November of 2021, and the last, which is the letter R of all this, is towards zero death TDZD grant agreement. So at this time, if a council member would like to pull an item, I know it's a long consent agenda, but if somebody would like to pull an item at this time, they can do so. Councilmember Thorson.
Well, first, I just want to say I'm a little disappointed we couldn't make it at least to Z on this. But good try. Maybe, there's always next year. No. Just I, J, and K, those three items.
It's like a puzzle here. So we'll add item I, and that'll be
G
on
on
that'll be
consent.
I on
Yeah, I on the
city
consent.
business.
Yeah.
J
city business.
will be J, and K will be K, under city business and action items.
Mayor, can we move those up just a bit
And we,
underneath the tip
so we will move those,
B, C, and D?
say that again?
Can we move those to B, C, and D behind A, which is the tip?
Which items? So we're moving item,
I, J, and K.
we're moving F to A. That's the TIF. That's for Michaela.
Correct.
We're moving that to A.
Yep. I to B,
And we want to move I to B,
J to C.
J to C, and K to D. Okay? I just want to get my order here in place. Okay. It's a long list here. So at this time, a motion to approve the consent agenda without those items.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? Not all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. I just want to mention that Laura is here from the person with the dog, and if anybody had any questions, but I think, Chief, you put something together for the packet that explained why we're doing this. So Laura, you're good to have your dog non-dangerous. So thank you for showing up. This time, meeting open to the public, and I have three. First one is RT with the Community Center. Welcome, RT.
Thank you. Don't have much for you this evening. Just wanted to honestly say thank you. Brian, the past couple days, got some of the ballast fixed. And also, most importantly, Ron from Public Works. Last night, the heat went out in the gym area, and he was literally on the roof till like midnight, working on it, and then working with the contractor that came in today, and really appreciate his time and his effort to ensure that we can have a gym that's more than 55 degrees. So, but I really appreciate that.
But they sweat a lot in the gym, don't they?
They do.
So they create a lot of
So
heat.
the kids were, the issue wasn't the kids, it was the coaches that were wearing their coats and their hats. And, but thank you very much for working on that. And then look forward to continuing to finish this out with the committee. And Mr. Thorson here behind me, who was awesome in our last meeting like usual. So
Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you. John Schmall, amended agenda, descriptiveness levy and underground electric service. Welcome, John. If we can keep it to around 3 minutes, that'd be great.
Oh, yes. John Schmall, 2750 Chisholm Avenue. The first one is one that keeps showing up all the time. We have an amended agenda, and we have no indication in the amended agenda as to what the amendment was. Now, maybe it is considered that all residents have 2 screens the size that they have at Wall Street, and you can go here, 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 here. Where's the change? Where's the change? Just indicate what the new item is. It happened to be R. But what would it take just to somehow indicate, maybe in red, maybe red isn't available? I don't know. Or maybe this is a bridge too far, and I ought to just give it up. Any idea? Should I give it up?
It happens.
No, it happens, and it happens, and it happens, and it happens.
It happens, and I know that staff is working on trying to make it as accountable as they can. They're doing their best they can, John.
All right.
It may not be the best for you, but they are doing the best.
Well, it should
that they
be
can.
not the best for the rest of the residents.
I think they're
also.
doing the best that they can.
Oh, well, I hope so. Item number 2 is RT once said in one of the many presentations that he had, he referred to the money that was going to be taken from the solid waste fund and put into the White Elephant CC Community Center as a levy. It's not a levy. A levy is done in the bright sunlight. It has hearings, all those other things. When you take it from an enterprise fund and just use it the way you were intending, I guess you're not intending on doing it anymore. Who knows what you're intending on doing? But it's not a levy. So I'm sorry, RT, it's not a levy. And the last item that I had, there were multiple electronic newsletters that brought up the case of the underground service being put in the northeast part of the city, Beam Avenue, all in through there. For background, I happen to use that route to go to my favorite store, Fleet Farm. And back 3 years ago, when they were doing the CIP from hell on Lake Boulevard, you all remember Lake Boulevard, they also put in new conduit underground at the same time. I noticed when they were doing this, there were 3 conduits, 2 gray, 1 orange. So I have to ask, why the orange? Stopped. I didn't talk to any city employees. I talked to the people that were bearing the conduit. I said, what's the orange? And they said, communications. And I said, what communications? Oh, it could be many things. So I thought at that time, there might have been an extra charge for this. And if you didn't know what you're going to do with it, why are you putting it in the ground? And the individual I was talking to, employee of the contractor, said, it really doesn't cost that much to put in another conduit. It's, you know, we got to dig it through with those rods. It doesn't cost that much to put in another conduit. Probably just the cost of the conduit itself. So I backed off. You never heard from me. If it's free, who cares what you're doing? In the beam area in the northeast part of the city, there's only 2 conduits. There's no 3 conduits. There's no orange conduit. I had the opportunity on the way to Fleet Farm to catch some of the utility workers and stopped and said to the group that I was able to talk to, where's the orange conduit? And they looked at me like I was from outer space, but it just happened to have another truck pull up with a utility employee. He was a little more knowledgeable. And I said, the orange conduit, where is it? Oh, we're not putting that in. How come? I don't know. We just do what is in the plan. I don't know why we don't put the orange conduit in. So an additional question, I said, the poles in the backyards, are they going to be taken out? No, they're not going to be taken out. Why is that? Because the electric service is still going to be on the poles. Oh, well, that seems strange. I have underground service, goes from the street to the meter on the house. It doesn't go to poles. So question is, will the residents in that area, since the poles are still in the backyard, will they get the privilege of paying the extra $2 or $3 for underground service when they really don't have it?
I don't think they will.
I don't know.
It won't be underground.
Is it true they won't be paying that?
That's true.
That is true. Okay. But why no communication conduit? Thank you.
So, John, a lot of times when you ask us questions, we bring it to staff, and they are able to help you, not at the meeting here, but it can be after the meeting.
We'll wait for it then.
Okay? Good. Thank you. We do have 2 public hearings, and I'll turn over to interim city manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Whoop, do we have one more?
Oh, I do, I'm sorry. I put them both away. Sorry, David. We have Dave Nelson. Welcome, and global warming.
Dave Nelson, 2574 4th Avenue East. I know last month, everybody all month long heard about global warming, and it is here.
It's cold outside right now, though.
Well, open your door and heat outside. But anyway, North St. Paul has jumped on the bandwagon, Brian. You know, you guys put the windmill in and that, the generator, and you also have solar where you can get green on your utility bill. I put solar in at my place. I was the first one in North St. Paul, plus there was another 5 other people that put it on their place, which was a good return because the bank was paying me 1/2 of 1%, and if you average mine out for the year, I'm getting 24 cents on the dollar roughly back each month, if you average it out. But I went a little bit farther. A battery-operated lawnmower. I was going to try one out. I went with it, and I'm surprised. It cuts, the motor spins about 1/3 faster than a gas engine will. And you get a better cut. Your lawn looks nice. You're not polluting the air. Because your lawnmower, right now with the cars with the catalytic converter, if you take your lawnmower and compare the exhaust from that and your car, that lawnmower is polluting more than your car. California's banning some of the gas engines. They're going to be going electric Or if I took my gas engine and went to California, they would not accept it. I couldn't use it there. But I mean, in the spring, Home Depot, I like to put a plug in for them because they have Toro days where they'll give you another $50 off the list price of the electric mower and that. So you just have to watch when they have the Toro days. And also, if you're a veteran and you carry a VA card, you get another 10% off, no matter if it's on sale or what. And I tried it out with the leaves and the bagger. I could not believe how it picked up the leaves. So if you can't afford something else, or say you go with the city of North St. Paul so much a month just to get green energy, if nothing else, this Christmas, talk to Santa, see if he can drop off a battery-powered lawnmower for you.
Oh, David, they also have snow blowers, battery operated.
Okay, yeah. I never looked at that.
What? You haven't looked at that yet?
I
You
got
gotta
a
look at
shovel
that.
that's not battery powered. But
Well, thank you, David. I
but
appreciate
anyway,
that.
it beats having a goat.
Yeah, right. Thank you. Okay, so at this time, we do have a public hearing, and I'll turn it over to Interim City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. First up is the Burwell Edition preliminary and final plat. We have Brandy here from WSB to discuss that for us.
Good evening, Mayor and
Welcome.
City Council. Thanks for the introduction. I do have a brief PowerPoint presentation for you.
And the history of this goes on, how long ago? How many years? In fact, I think the surveyor came out of retirement because he worked on it years ago, so.
Yeah, I have it in my notes that it was about 15 years ago as well.
Wow.
So this Burwell Edition is a city-initiated project where the city submitted a land registration to Ramsey County to clarify the ownership of the block between Margaret Charles Sepulveda and Highway 20, or Highway 36, which is the block that we're in right now at City Hall. The existing lot configuration, which you can see on the screen, is the result of numerous plats and land conveyances in the past. As you can see, lot lines overlap existing structures, and Centennial Drive is not reflected accurately. To remedy the lot line issues, the city entered into a stipulation agreement with the other property owners on this block that will legally clear up the titles for each property owner. The plats, which are before you tonight, are the legal mechanism to map the legal descriptions in that stipulation agreement. And in addition to clearing up the ownership, the platting process also establishes the right-of-way for Centennial Drive. So this project is a little bit different than a typical platting process in that there is no subdivision involved. In fact, per state law, lot consolidations such as this are not subject to a city's subdivision review authority. So there are no new buildings and no public infrastructure proposed with this plat. It was brought forward to the Plan Commission last Thursday as a matter of procedure. They reviewed the zoning against the plat, and there are some existing nonconformities that will continue. And we consulted with Soren, the city attorney, on that. And we were assured that because this simply memorializes the existing ownership, that variances are not required. Staff submitted public hearing notices for the Plan Commission and City Council meeting tonight to the Star Tribune. Owners within 350 feet of the plat were sent a notification letter in the mail. And we also notified Ramsey County, the Minnesota Department of Transportation, and the DNR. Plan Commission last week recommended approval of the Burwell preliminary plat, and staff also recommends council approval tonight. And that is all.
Okay, any questions? What is your first name again? I'm sorry.
Brandy.
Brandy. Any questions for Brandy? If not, we'll open the public hearing up at 7:06 here. Is there anybody on Zoom or in the public that would like to address the council in regards to this? Nothing? Nobody in the council here, so we'll close the public hearing at this time. And then the motion will be for resolution to approve the Burwald Addition preliminary and final plat. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries, and that cleans up that title. And Soren, I'm sure you'll take that and take it off. Yep. Okay, we have another public hearing. I'll turn over to Interim City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the Truth and
Thank you, Brandy.
Truth and Taxation hearing, dealing with the 2022 tax levy and budget. We'll turn that over to Finance Director Dan Winnick.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. This is the annual Truth and Taxation presentation. So on an annual basis, held during a very specific time of the year, each city, county, school district, taxing authority must have a truth and taxation hearing in which the residents of the community have an opportunity to ask questions and weigh in their concerns and raise issues regarding the upcoming levy. The purpose of this meeting, we're going to provide an opportunity for residents to ask questions, learn about the city budget and tax levy. The presentation will cover why tax bills change, the property tax in Minnesota, the 2022 Truth and Taxation Notice, preliminary valuation changes, the city 2022 levy highlights, budget highlights, and the city general fund and debt budgets in the city property tax levy, HRA and EDA property tax levy, additional information, questions and comments. And so why do property taxes change? There can be a number of factors why they change. The changes can be in market values. They can be levies at various jurisdictions. They can be debt issuance, special assessments, voter-approved referendums, changes in state and federal mandates, changes in aid and revenue from state and federal governments, and state legislative changes. The property tax in Minnesota, the county assessor determines the property values in the year prior to the taxes being paid. The city sets preliminary levy by September. Other taxing districts, county and school districts also set their own levies. Proposed property tax notices are mailed by county in the month of November. City holds truth and taxation public hearings by December, and property taxes are finalized for the following year. So when we look at our property tax, the projected changes in the 2021 payable 2022 for a median value house is increased. The value is increased to $237,150 from $230. It's a 3.1% increase. Countywide, the median value changed from 254 to 245, a 3.5. So you can see that the city is holding right there on the overall residential median value of a home. And the residential properties are seeing the largest gains. So the shift in the property taxes because of the value increases are more substantial in residential properties versus commercial and apartments. A 2022 sample calculation of just the city's portion, if we take that median home value at $237,150, you take out the homestead market value exclusion, you have a taxable market value of $221,000. The class rate to get to a net tax capacity of $2,213. With the proposed tax rate, the city portion of the property taxes will be $972,000. This is assuming that the city passes its proposed 5.99% increase in the city taxes, in the city levy. The truth in taxation notice. There's a different terminology. There's a market value, which is referring to the assessed value determined by the Ramsey County Assessor's Office. There's a market value exclusion, which refers to the homestead market value that's excluded from in the calculation of property taxes. There's a net tax capacity, which is delivered by multiplying the class rates by taxable market value and is a tax base used for levies other than most referendum levies. There's referendum market value, which is based upon the market value. There's the net tax capacity levy. That is the property tax levy applied to the net tax capacity tax base. This amount does not include the portion of the levy that comes from fiscal disparities. And then there's the referendum market value, is the property tax levy applied to the referendum market value tax base. This amount does not include the portion of the levy that comes from fiscal disparities. This is kind of an example of the truth in taxation notice that residents had received. You can see that they're in the upper right-hand corner. There's a valuation and classification. It'll give values for both 2021 and 2022. It'll also include the homestead exclusion value and the taxable market value of the property, and then also the classification, the property classification of being a residential homestead. The truth in taxation notice also will show on the bottom portion, it'll show the taxes for, the estimated taxes for all of the jurisdictions that property lies in. And it does not include if there's any voter-approved referendums in a current year, which the city had no referendums. And it includes both the estimated and taxable values, as had talked about, which was in the upper right-hand corner. And this property that I had pulled up had a value in 2021 of $233,500. In 2022, $239,200. You can see the exclusion drops down because that actually phases out over time up to a value. It's totally, completely phased out at $414,000 of a value. This slide here will illustrate kind of that phasing out of the market value exclusion. Again, another impact why if the values are going up, why the property tax will go up, not only in addition to if there's an increase in levy, but also in the market value, but also because of the reduction in the market value exclusion. This illustration, using the same property that you saw before, you'll see that it'll show all the jurisdictions, the changes of tax from 2021 to 2022. In this illustration, it'll show that Ramsey County, including the Regional Rail Authority, would go up 3.74%, North St. Paul 6.05%, school districts 622, 1.47%, and metropolitan special taxing districts 5.88%. All in all, the tax actually goes up 3.9%. The distribution of the taxes, you can see that 34% is going to Ramsey County. City of St. Paul's, approximately 32% of the tax bill. The school district is 29%, and the other taxing authorities 5%. Preliminary evaluation changes. You can see that for the city of North St. Paul, our market values, our total estimated market values have increased 4.6%. On the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, the estimated market value for a residential property has increased 3.1%. This will kind of show a little bit more, some information of the different property types of residential, apartments, commercial, and industrial. And it'll show how the median values from pay 21 and 21 to pay 22 have changed. And you can see Residential has increased to 3.1% on the median value. All the median values on apartments, commercial, and industrial for the city of North St. Paul have actually decreased. Again, this is contributing to the shift of being more of a burden on the residential properties. Getting into the levy highlights, the city's 2022 levy is right now is set at 5.99%, or $328,850 increase from 2021. The cities in towns in Ramsey County averaged a 6.74% increase. Cities in the state of Minnesota averaged a 6.6% increase. So we are not out of line for what we're looking at. In addition, as a reminder to City Council, that City Council last year passed a 0% levy increase. Since 2009, the city's average annual levy increase has been 5.4%. Again, from a historical standpoint, the 5.99% that you worked so hard on building the budget this year is, again, not out of line. The HRA and the EDA preliminary levies are each increasing 8.78%. That's a combined increase of $32,000. That is the maximum that we can levy based on state statute. Some of the budget highlights, our general fund budget actually is increasing 5.86%, or $438,000. Some of the major changes, there were some staff additions on the police, public works, amounting to approximately $249,000. COLA step increases and benefit increases amounted to $224,000, and a reduction in a transfer out of the general fund of $50,000. Debt budget decreased a little over 10%, or $153,000. That was achieved through issuing the refunding bonds in 2021 to reduce the costs, and then also calling the 2012A refunding bonds early. This budget also includes an investment in our infrastructure. The plan is to invest over $9 million in a new city infrastructure to be completed in 2022 and 2023. By decreasing that budget, by recalling the bonds and refunding the bonds has actually allowed us to build that capacity to go out in debt and still make a 10% reduction and be able to do the $9.2 million. Also, this budget shows that there's a commitment to the city-operated public safety. It increased the police complement by 1.725 FTE, and it's a continuation of a balanced budget. In other words, we're not using any fund balance in the general fund to subsidize this budget. So we can look at the North St. Paul levy components. There's both the general fund and the debt. You can see how we've increased the general fund $482,000. The debt's been reduced by approximately $154,000, increasing the levy $328,000, or the 5.99%. You can see the composition as you've seen the levies from 2009 all the way to 2022, showing that we'll have a levy of $5.8 million comprised of those two components. This will show the general fund here of showing all of the revenues and showing comparisons from 2017 all the way to the 2022 proposed budget. It also shows expenditures by categories. And again, if you look at those expenditures by categories, what you're going to notice is that there's 24% increase in personal and benefit costs. If you look at the rest of the line items that are in the budget, and staff did a tremendous job on this, as you're well aware, they pretty much kept, the line. There were no increases in other line items categorically. It's really just the increase in personnel and then cost of living and benefit increases. Here's a look at the complement of the general fund, and you can see that we've increased the complement here in 2022 by the 1.7%. There's actually a little change from the community development and shifting over to the EDA that kind of offsets the 0.025%. Revenue by categories. This is where we really need to take notice onto it. You can see 56% of our revenue is based upon the property tax. And an additional almost 20% is intergovernmental, local government aid. You can see that we have a very high dependency on those two factors. The other the other financing source, that 10%, is what earlier today in the workshop that we kind of discussed is actually those transfers that are coming from primarily the enterprise fund. So right now, we already have a dependency of 56% on property taxes. Expenditures by category, you can see personnel and benefits, 64% of our costs in the general fund are related to our personnel costs. Expenditure by departments, you can see police is by far our biggest at 43%. But if we look at collection of that with the fire and code, we're looking at a 57% is for public safety. And that's really where a city should be investing their money into. And then followed by, after that is really is street maintenance or public works. This slide will show the total levy debt service, and you can see that it's just under $1.4 million in debt. It'll also show when those final pay years will be. And so we have some time before all of the debt will sunset. This will show kind of an illustration of later on tonight, we'll be passing the levies. And if a median home in the city of North St. Paul had a 3.1% increase, and with our levies at 5.99%, they should see approximately $66 increase or 7.23% increase in their taxes from 2021 to 2022. If there was no value change, they would see a $31 increase or a 3.46% increase, again with that 5.99% levy increase. HRA and EDA property tax levy. Again, both of them are being proposed to be set at the statutory maximum. Combined, there's an increase of $32,000. The HRA maximum levy for 2022 is $205,000, 8.7% increase. It's used for the student-built housing program, future land acquisition and residential development, monitoring existing home improvement and energy loans, staff wages, and associated expenses. The EDA maximum levy is going up to just under $201,000, again an 8.78% increase. It's for future land acquisition, programs to promote economic development, staff wages, and associated expenses. And here you can see that both of them each one of them is raising a little over $16,000 again, combined just under $33,000. The impact of those on the HRA and the EDA, again, if we're using that median value home with a 3.1% increase, and they have a levy increase of 8.78%, it'll have an increase of just under $5 or a 7.66% increase from 2021. If we were to use that property with no value change but the 8.78% levy increase, it would have an impact of about $2.50 on the property, resulting in approximately a 3.9% increase. There's some additional information just to kind of show here. I had referred to that in the cities and towns of Ramsey County, we're averaging a 6.74%. You can see the different levies and where the city of North St. Paul here is at 5.9. St. Paul is going 6.9. New Brighton an 8%. White Bear Lake 9.6. Gem Lake in the White Bear Township. And this will illustrate the tax change on a median value single-family home. This information was provided by Ramsey County. It'll show that 3.1% increase on the median value home. The tax change for the county should be approximately a 4.2, city 7.2, schools 7.4, other 7.9, and overall 6.4% increase, or a $207 increase from 2001. Again, this showing the commissioner districts in Ramsey County and the city of North St. Paul, seeing residential taxes increasing about 4.3%, commercial staying about the same, and apartments increasing about 2.1%. Again, this will show the different shifts of what they can anticipate percentile-wise and dollar-wise of what the tax impacts will be for the city based upon our 5.99% levy for the general fund and the 8.78% increases for both HRA and the Economic Development Authority. And you can see that most of the majority of the properties will see between a 0 and a 10% increase from the 2021 to 2022. We, as of November 25th, we had received no calls from the public regarding the notice on for truth in taxation. If there's any valuation, property classification, status questions, they should be directed to the Ramsey County in the Ramsey County Assessor's Office number, and then there's a link that's provided there that they can inquire on that information. There's also some programs that can help residents reduce their property taxes. There's refunds to the state of Minnesota. There's the senior citizen property tax deferral. And then there's homestead applications are due by December 31st, 2021 to get your property, your residential property homesteaded versus a non-homestead status. And with that, I conclude and look forward to if there's any questions from the residents and or the city council.
Any questions for Dan?
I just have a comment.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I want to thank you, Dan, and your staff, putting this together. I'm never happy with the increase, but I think keeping it under 6% is huge. And then I like the comparison of the at least over the ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for that. And I was so, afraid last year when it was 0, we're going to get into double figures, but that was going to be bad. Good work.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Dan? Not, I thank you too, because you jumped into this position midway through our cycle here. So kudos to you and the staff and working together and putting this together. I know our new city manager, who's actually in the audience, will be happy to have your team on board working forward. So thank you for that. So at this time, we will have the public hearing. We'll open up the public hearing at 7:30 here. And if there's anybody in the audience who would like to address the council, they could do so at this time. Is there anybody online who? We have nobody online, so I will close the public hearing here at 7:30 at the same time. We'll actually make it 7:31 and make it look like we had a minute. So we'll close the hearing, and then we have resolutions in front of us. And let me just give me a second here, because this packet is pretty big, and I gotta get these resolutions in order here. So the first one is the resolution adopting the final 2022 general fund budget and setting the final 2022 general purpose and debt service levy. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next one is resolution adopting the final 2022 tax levy for the North St. Paul Economic Development Authority. Is there a motion?
So moved, Your Honor.
Moved by Councilmember Cole,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Next resolution is resolution adopting the final 2022 tax levy for the North St. Paul Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Motion for that.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Wong,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. And I think that's all of them. Did I get them all? Got them all. Okay. So, public hearings are all over with. We set the budget, so Dan, thank you again for your presentation and working your due diligence to getting this done for us.
If I may just have a moment, I want to thank City Council for your support. As I came in the middle of the budget process, you were very helpful. You asked very good questions. It was a very good dialogue. I do look forward to next year because I think we'll have some very stimulating conversations. I want to thank Brian as being the interim city manager. He's been a great leader and has been a very good coach for me during this time. And I very much look forward to our new city manager. And I think we're going to really shake this city up and really have a lot of fun. So.
With that said, interim city manager, city business and action items.
Thank you, Mayor. First up is a TIF note assignment related to contract for private development with M&I Home and Tax Increment Financing District. And that will be presented by Michaela Hout from Baker Tilly.
Welcome, Michaela.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. Michaela Hewitt from Baker Tilly Municipal Advisors. I'm here to provide a brief overview of the action item before you tonight, as well as address any questions that you might have. Also wanted to let you know that the buyer of the note, the assignee, is also in the audience if there's any questions. So again, just a quick summary. As background, the city did enter into a contract for private development with M.I. Homes in December of 2018 related to the redevelopment of the project site referred to as Anchor Block South and allowing for the construction of the new housing units. The city did establish a tax increment financing district number 4-7 to facilitate financing a portion of those costs. And the tax increments from that district were pledged to the developer in the maximum amount of $3,050,000 to finance a portion of the extraordinary soil correction and acquisition costs. Pursuant to Section 7.5 of the agreement, M.I. Homes intends to sell their interest in the TIF note to the buyer, which is NSP TIF LLC. And has notified the city per its requests and intentions in a November 17th letter. So the action item before you tonight, there's a variety of documents, and it pertains to the transfer of the TIF note. And included in your packet is the original request from M.I. Homes for that TIF note assignment. The collateral assignment of the TIF note from NSP TIF LLC to their lender, Tradition Bank, as well as the assignment of the TIF note, the city estoppel certificate, the TIF note purchase agreement, and then lastly, related to the contract itself, is a certificate of completion, as an exhibit of the agreement and required to indicate the developer has completed the minimum improvements per the terms of the agreement and is also included within the estoppel certificate. So that's a very brief overview. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Any questions for Michaela? We are so close to M&I being complete. I would say next few months, or I don't know if that's a true statement or not. And I can't remember your first name. Hate to bring you up. Yep, you may. Come on up.
Good evening, Your Honor, members of the City Council. My name is Steve Schwanke. I'm with
There it is.
we were the developers of the property. Inland Development Company Partners is who I'm with, and we, in effect, did the development work for MI Homes, who actually ended up being the builder on the property. So we do this many times. We've worked with M&I Homes for many years, have this kind of arrangement with them throughout the entire metropolitan area. And I just wanted to, I might, not quite in the next couple of weeks. It's been a very, very successful project from my perspective anyway. I hope the city views the very same thing. I know M&I Homes is very excited about it. We're very excited about it and very pleased with it. So unfortunately, no, I would guess, Your Honor, to complete everything, probably about a year yet to wrap everything up and complete it. And, you know, this is getting all the landscaping done and complete. About another year, though. I do want to use this as an opportunity. Now, some of you I haven't met, we're not on the City Council. We started this in 2018. So this, which is about a typical length for this kind of project. Some of you I haven't met. For those who were here at the time, it's been a real pleasure. I just absolutely want to say it's been a real pleasure on our behalf and on behalf of MI Homes to work with the city, not only at the beginning, back in 2018, but all the way through the process with your staff. We've been very, very pleased, and it's just been a great pleasure to work with you, and thank you very much.
Steve, it's been a great relationship, and I think the product is wonderful down there. It looks really nice.
Thank you, Your Honor. Our pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Michaela? If not, we do have a resolution approving the assignment of a tax increment revenue note.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson. Second by Councilmember Peterson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Michaela, thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for bumping me up.
Yep, yeah, you didn't have to sit through all this.
Have a good evening.
Thank you. Interim City Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the 2022 City Council meeting calendar. I will turn that over to our City Clerk, Jenny.
Actually, I'll turn it over to City Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah, so the reason I pulled this, I was just concerned over, it's saying that the HRA will not meet on a regular basis, just on an as-needed basis, and I thought that the agreement was that meets at least quarterly. So I think, just wanted to put that out there that we would, schedule that to meet quarterly, like the first meeting being in March, either the first or second meeting in March, March 1st or March 15th, and then continue on after. Okay.
And then we should also add that we would meet, if need be, also. It seems like there's a lot of things that come up that we need to have a special meeting. Okay. So bear with me while I get that. So it'll just be a motion to approve the schedule. There is a resolution in there as well? I don't know if there's, I'm not going to go back and look. I just want to approve that schedule according to those changes.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion?
If I may.
Yep.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that the calendar aligns with our new city manager's schedule as well. I believe he sent a note. Yeah, there were 2 dates that he was unable to make. Come on down. I guess.
I was gonna wait till the end of the meeting to know, but no. And we did get that email, and I, fully approve of it, but I think it's something that, yes.
Yes,
John,
Mr.
welcome,
Mayor and
welcome.
Council members. First of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity. I'm really excited to get to know the community, to get to know the organization, and I'm really looking forward to rolling up my sleeves and helping you, helping the staff, helping the community achieve its vision of what it wants to be. I can tell you that early on, the ratio of questions to answers is going to skew heavily to the question side, so I hope you can bear with me during that. As you mentioned, I looked at the city council schedule. I also looked at my city manager professional agreement that says that the expectation is that I'm at all city council meetings, which is understandable. I had a couple of conflicts that I let you know about. My perspective is that I would designate somebody to be an acting city manager if I were to be absent in that way. So I wouldn't expect city council meetings to change for that. In the future, I'll do my best to schedule around city council meetings.
I think that's appropriate. So, yeah, we all approve of that. And can hardly wait for you to join us January 3rd.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you. So we'll approve the schedule as stated with those changes adding to the HRA, and then we'll accommodate those two, I think it was 2 dates that he couldn't make. And he'll appoint somebody to be at that meeting. So motion to approve that, and I think we got the motion from Councilmember Thorson, second by Councilman Wong. Any other discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. So good, thank you. Interim Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the North Suburban Access Professional and Technical Service Agreement. And I'll turn over to Councilmember Thorson for his questions.
Yeah, so just want to comment on this. I understand that we don't technically have a city policy that states that every single city function, meeting-wise, be televised and archived. We've had some discussion about it, but I think, I would like to see EDA meetings, Parks and Rec Commission, the Arts Council, any other meeting that may come up that's of public interest included in this, agreement that they're televised and in the spirit of being transparent and offering residents an opportunity to engage or, at least participate. If they can't be here physically, they can watch remotely or, go back at their leisure and watch. So that's all. It was just a comment on, hopefully in the next year, we can have discussion about that and I understand if there's disagreement on the council, but, put it to a vote and then move on. But I hope that in the next year, we can discuss that potential on adding those items on this contract. And that was it.
Are you saying you want to add those to this contract, or you just bring it up for discussion for?
Yeah, I will bring it up for discussion in the future.
In the future?
When I was reading through this, I thought that the direction from the council on our last discussion that we had on it, even though we didn't vote on it, and there's no resolution, there's no city policy, that all meetings be televised and recorded. And obviously, reading through this contract, it's only covering city council workshops, city council meetings, HRA meetings if they occur after, and even down at the bottom of the schedule, it says they're to be determined, but generally there's 4, so when we meet quarterly, and then planning commission meetings. That's the only thing that's included in this contract. So my hope is that, in the future, we can add those other meetings to this contract. I understand it's going to have an increased cost, but, since we left the Ramsey Washington Cable Commission, and now we're taking those fees on ourselves, it falls under that realm of what we need to spend that money on, so.
Okay, so we'll leave it as stated and then discussion later in regards to possibly adding those to the contract. So motion to approve the North Suburban Access NSAC Professional Technical Service Agreement as noted here, as stated here.
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify.
I give it to Lisa.
Well, they both, I heard it at the same time, so I'm going to give it to Cole. If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Interim City Manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the police vehicle replacement with SIP funds. I'll turn that over to Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah.
Just questions?
So I apologize for being absent the last meeting. I know this briefly got discussed about a change to the vehicle replacement, but so from my understanding, originally when we discussed this, the proposal was from the police department was to purchase 4. Are they still called Ford Explorers, or they just reverted to a police pursuit vehicle, the PPV? But it was like a hybrid 4 Explorer PPV. They're gas, electric, and all-wheel drive, I believe. That was originally what was discussed, and now just seeing this, I see there's an F-150 PPV, and then a Dodge Challenger. So I just was curious as to why we're going that, changing that.
Sure. Well, like everyone in any organization, we're all different shapes and sizes. So it's a Charger, actually, is one of the items. That's going to replace the Taurus, which is no longer available to purchase. So just keeping it a sedan option for our officers. And then the F-150 is due to different size of officers. On the other end of having a sedan, the F-150 is a bigger vehicle, and then it also provides us with the option of, there's frequently calls for found bicycles, and with all the equipment in the back of an Explorer, they don't fit the best. So having a pickup truck is really going to provide us an option for providing the best service based on all the different calls that we get.
I'm assuming or hoping that the F-150 is 4-wheel drive option?
Correct.
Okay. And the reason I bring that up is because several years ago, we purchased 2 police pursuit Chevy Tahoes, but they weren't 4-wheel drive. And I believe the reasoning was because to have the 4-wheel drive capability, you lose that high-speed pursuit rating or, whatever.
Sure.
So they were basically
Not
kind
great
of
for
useless in
Minnesota.
this time of year, in this kind of weather. And actually, one of them got totaled right away, too. So I'm just hoping that doesn't happen again, A, and then that B, I was just inquiring as to why the change was, but it seems to make sense. And we'll have to trust your judgment on that, so.
I appreciate it.
Yep.
They're actually cheaper with the different options. The Explorer's actually the most expensive vehicle, but it is a well-seasoned, functioning police vehicle, so.
Great. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Since we have the chief here, any other questions for him? Put him on the spot.
Appreciate that.
If not, the motion of the resolution is to request purchase of 4 new 2022 police patrol vehicles. Moved by Councilmember Peterson,
Second?
second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the motion carries. And I just want to mention that the last council meeting, we did have discussion in regards to try to get some of these vehicles passed sooner than later, only because of you had kind of requested to get the ball rolling sooner than later. And maybe, I couldn't really explain it that night of the council, but I know that you had that request. And are you still
Yeah.
finding that to
Just
get these
working with-
vehicles might be difficult, or?
I'm hoping not. I think now, I mean, I'll act tomorrow due to your approval of them, but it's just based on the assembly line. So eventually they wipe away the 2022 models and they're no longer on the assembly line, and then you can't purchase your vehicle. So we have to let them know that we're intending to make the purchase of these vehicles before they're off the assembly line. I think we'll still have enough time now with your approval, so I appreciate that.
Is this a good salesman working you, or is he?
Well, you know, the Ford dealer, we had a little more time. It was Dodge that, I was a bit concerned about, so I think we're still good.
No, we see it out there. You go to these lots and they're all empty, all these new vehicles. So it just blows my mind because you got all the commercials for all these cars and you can't even get them. So,
Yeah, it's tough.
okay. Well, thank you. I didn't mean to put you on the spot there.
Oh, no problem. Thank you.
I'll turn it over to interim city manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the 2022 budget and levy overview. I'll turn that over to Director Winnick.
Mayor, city council members, I actually believe the resolutions that are associated with that item actually were already adopted after the truth and taxation. So we can actually move to the next item.
Okay, so that brings us, go ahead, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is the adopt the revised 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan. Again, I'll turn that back over to Finance Director Dan Winnick.
Mayor, city council members, you've previously adopted the 2022-2031 capital improvement plan. We have another adjustment. Now we need to get caught up to what the police chief approval just got there. In our capital plan, we had each of those 4 vehicles estimated about approximately $65,000 totally equipped. They're running at about $77,500. So the CIP plan has been adjusted to show that is the only change that is in the plan.
Do we need a motion then to?
There is actually, there's actually a resolution, so we have you adopt the revised.
So the motion is for resolution adopting the revised 2022 to 2031 capital improvement plan. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Thorson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Cole. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Interim Frandl. I'll just call you Interim Frandl.
Perfect. Mayor. Next up is adopt the 2022 city non-levy budgets. I'll turn that over to Finance Director Winnick.
Earlier this evening, you adopted the levy portion of our budget. What this item does is adopt the city's non-levy budgets, which include the enterprise funds, the internal service funds, and some special revenue funds, including community center, community event fund, fire relief, street maintenance fund, and the park fund. And the resolution is attached if there's any questions. And in addition, all of the budgets are located and attached to this item too.
Okay, so the first resolution is approving the 2022 non-levy budgets. Is there a motion? Moved by Councilmember Peterson.
Second.
Second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Okay, now, Finance Director, what is the second one that we're looking for? Would it be,
That is the only resolution with that, yep, with that item. That approves.
got a lot on this?
Yeah, it's just, there's a lot of attachments that are there because
Okay.
it shows all of the budgets that you've approved. There is another item coming up that we'd already spoke about in the workshop on the municipal fee schedule and utility rate schedule. That'll be coming up next.
So that's what I have here, is the
Yep,
fee
yep.
schedule next? And
Yes, correct, yep. And the fee schedule that we went over earlier in the workshop, outside of some changes as far, I'll try to get an answer on the amusement to why it has to be increased fourfold. We may end up adjusting that, but I'll also give an explanation on that in January when you do the final adoption of it. In addition to that, we need to make sure that the park building resident versus non-resident is corrected before it gets posted. And then on page 21, that I learned how to spell release correctly.
Okay, and so there's no resolution for that. We'll have that in January.
And I will turn that over. Does the resolution need to be by
Yeah,
ordinance?
it's by ordinance.
So I have to approve the,
Yeah, if we're ready to act on it tonight with those amendments, we certainly can. If you want to wait to pump those in for your first meeting in January. I suspect, custom is to amend it now and have it be effective Jan 1. I didn't review the ordinance beyond that. So if you want to make it with those amendments, I think there was a question on one of the fees. Dan, is that correct?
That is correct, yeah. And I'll look into that tomorrow. To
So
find
we can adopt the balance, understanding that if we need to change that one section of the ordinance, we can bring that back to you as just a one-liner.
okay. So the motion would be to adopt the fee schedule
Correct?
as noted, and then with the changes. Is there a motion for the fee schedule?
So moved.
Moved by Councilmember Cole. Second? I'll make that second. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Motion carries. Turn it over to interim manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Last up,
There's a lot of stuff here.
tough one. Last one is the Park and Recreation budget spending. I don't know if you have any comments on that, Dan?
I do not.
I'm going to turn it over to Councilmember Cole.
My recommendation is that we table this, and for some reason my computer went, I don't have the resolution in front of me. I've got some snippets that are coming out of the park improvement plan, but the plan has yet to be finally reviewed or discussed with council. So I don't know why this is in here, unless there's something, Brian, that you might know. There's nothing in here that I'm aware of they're looking for basically what in essence is a 5-year plan to be approved?
It may have been informational purposes. Lisa submitted this to the agenda, so I guess I'm not sure where you guys were at on that.
Okay, so my recommendation is it's tabled until after we finalize the park improvement plan and we have conversation with, whether it be at a workshop or what purposes we use to bring forward the plan. But I would say that if there's anything that's on here that the Park and Rec feels we need to move forward with now, that we get a separate resolution for spending in place, at which point in time, it's gonna need to go through the vetting process for, planning, et cetera, to take a look at anything we do as well.
I'll ask city attorney. Should we table it, or should we just?
Well, you can table it either to a date certain, or you can just simply direct staff to bring it back to the committees and work it up. Do you want it back on a date certain? It sounds like there's a few items out there to be taken care of and addressed. So, Councilmember Cole, do you want to actually direct it back to the park committee?
Yeah, because I guess I'm unclear as to why it's here now, so I need some clarity as to why it's in front of us this evening.
So maybe rather than a motion to table it, there would be just simply no action on it, which means it would not be approved, but a motion to direct staff to bring it back to the park committee to receive feedback so that it can come back to you at a date at some point in the future.
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
Council okay with that? Yep. Direct it back to the Park and Rec.
And that's what my page looks like. It just came up blank.
Okay. I'll turn it over to Interim Manager Frandl.
Thank you, Mayor. Next up is reports for the city manager. I guess I'd just like to say, we've had a strong year, even though we've seen many changes. We're really looking forward to the new city manager coming in. I think we got the right guy, and just really looking forward to that. And to everybody having a good new year and happy holidays.
Councilmember Peterson.
Brian, you've done a great job. We're in a tough situation, and I don't know if you really wanted to volunteer for this, but I think you did good. I think we're on the right track. We've got a new city guy coming in, city manager, so it's all good. But, you really, day-to-day stuff, you took care of business, and the staff really appreciates it. I do.
I would just like to add to your, again, some of the staff members came in here during the budget cycle, thank Dan again. Brian, yeah, you came in, and really your professionalism, your knowledge, your respect, for everyone, I don't know what to say, but I think you handled everything with, like I said, professional and respect. So I thank you very much, and it was great working with you. And again, I look forward to working with our new city manager. And I guess this is kind of premature, but we're thinking about possibly not having our last meeting in December. And I think with what we've had on our agenda for tonight, we've had a lot. I think we're able to cancel our last meeting as long as the bills are paid. I believe we're in a position that bills will be paid without having that last meeting.
Yes, that's correct. We've done it in the past where the city manager has the authorization to temporarily approve them until the next city council meeting, which would be in January.
So if it's okay with the council, and I'll get direction from the city attorney, are we able to cancel that last meeting in December? Do we need a motion to do that?
I would, because it is a meeting that shows up on your schedule each year. You put out your schedule. Well, you just approved it tonight with your regularly scheduled meeting. So I think the cleanest way to do it is to make a motion tonight to cancel that December meeting. And then that way there's no confusion around it. So I would ask for a motion on that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. So.
I have a personal reason.
So we will, the motion is to cancel the general meeting and the workshop for, I think it's December 22nd. 21st? 21st. So moved by Councilmember Peterson. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Councilmember Thorson. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We will have a break the week of Christmas. So again, it's kind of premature thanking Brian, but yes, thank you very much, because this will probably be your last meeting before our new guy comes on.
Big smile on his face.
Anything else? That's all you have. Okay, so we'll turn it over to our reports of council, commissions, and committees. Councilmember Cole.
Last night, we had a meeting for the Silver Lake Improvement Association. All went well. The annual meeting is scheduled for February 7th at 6:30, and I believe they have requested that this be a Zoom meeting going forward, for at least for the interim. So we'll need some help with staff getting that set up. I see Carrie shaking her head, so I appreciate that. They did have one question that I wasn't able to address, and that's the status on the aerator of Silver Lake. I know there's been conversation between Ramsey County, Maplewood, North St. Paul, funding conversations. So they're just concerned that it's going to go in before everything all ices up. I don't think they care who pays for it. We do. But that was just a question that I couldn't answer. So that was the only thing that came out of that. I don't know. I'm looking at both of you if either one of you know anything. Ron's shaking his head one way.
I talked to Morgan today about that, and he was going to follow up with Ramsey. Oh, I'm sorry, you're still here.
There's Morgan. I didn't even bring you into the loop.
Council and the public who's interested in this item. The agencies are still working out the details of future agreements, which will formally define the arrangement. My understanding is that the aerator goes in after the lake is iced over. So
Okay.
you have to cut it in, actually, and that Ramsey County will be taking care of that with North St. Paul Public Works maybe observing and trying to make sure that that's happening. So I've asked for an update from Ramsey County staff in terms of where are they at with the agreements, confirming the meetings between the two public works. So that hasn't happened yet, but I guess it's fair to say that the collaborative arrangement between all the parties, Maplewood, Valley Branch Watershed District, City of North St. Paul, and Ramsey County is in progress.
Wonderful. Thank you. Next EDA meeting is the 14th at 3 o'clock in the Sandberg Room. The Park and Rec is having a very rare December meeting. It'll be December 15th at 3:30 in the Sandberg Room. The sole purpose that I'm aware of is to discuss the park improvement plan so that they can bring finalization to the plan, giving enough time hopefully for the EDA to do a quick review at their first meeting and then bring it forward to council in a workshop following sometime in January or early February. And that's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Wong.
Yeah, the Arts and Culture Commission had met the first Tuesday of this month, and currently they're reviewing the processes in which they'll intake different projects. We had the Veterans Park organization come to kind of discuss a potential project down the road. So there's already great interest, and they're moving along just fine. I think Chair Sonic is doing a wonderful job moving that forward. And we had to discuss canceling the Fire and Ice because Parks canceled Fire and Ice, so Arts and Culture will not be participating in that.
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, really? It's canceled.
Really?
Because of COVID.
Okay, evidently I must have missed out on a heck of a meeting because I'm not aware of it because we discussed
Having?
having it as well. So I guess I'll make some follow-up phone calls tomorrow.
And I haven't seen anything advertised.
Nor have I.
So I'm assuming it was canceled, but
Yeah, staff had informed us that it was canceled, and so we wouldn't move forward from the Arts and Culture Commission on that particular project. In terms of the Planning Commission, I was absent this last Thursday. However, they did review the sign ordinance. Morgan Dolly was also there reviewing some of the parking we had discussed on 7th Street, whether it be diagonal or parallel to the curb. They'll continue with the sign ordinance and move along on that. And then for the redevelopment master plan, I'll defer to Scott Thorson, Councilmember Thorson, to add his remarks there. And I think that's all I have. Thank you.
I just got a question for you. I know at the joint meeting that we had with the EDA and the Planning Commission, one of the requests that was asked was if the Planning Commission could take over the downtown, what do you call it, fixtures?
Seating arrangements.
Yep. Have they done anything? Have you talked about that, or are we able to pass that on to the Planning Commission?
I believe the Planning Commission has
Has it on their agenda?
included that in their agenda for the next few meetings.
Okay.
If
Good.
not, we'll make sure that it's there.
Good. Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, the League of Minnesota Cities was a big hit with the, I got to highlight the city and I got to dress up like the snowman.
Dress up like the snowman, or you were the
I was
snowman?
the snowman.
Okay.
It fit me. I was asked Friday, I put the whole outfit on and I filled it out good, but it was fine. And they got a kick out of it. And then I made them all make little snowmen on a drawing, and it was fun to see all these adults using crayons, all the mayors and administrators. I gave out little prizes, so that was good. So then I thought I was done, but they asked me to be like an ambassador, so I'm gonna continue to serve. Tomorrow I'm going to Apple Valley for a city visit. I'm more than honored to do that, to represent our St. Paul. It's more of a listening thing, but I'll be going to different cities throughout the state, because I've got time to do it. Is it not working? Hello, it's on.
There's two of you.
Okay. So I'm kind of excited about that, and that's all I have. Thank you.
Councilmember Thurston.
Can you hear me? Okay. The redevelopment master plan committee met last Monday, or maybe it was 2 Mondays ago now. And we just had continued discussion on updating the plan. Kind of a lot of the core of the discussion was, we're at the guiding principles and kind of went through those and how we're gonna modify or change the WSB, I forget her name, maybe Morgan, you were there? Brandy was there taking lots of notes, and she had made a comment that there's just a lot of good discussion. She got a lot of good feedback and direction from the group, so the next meeting is going to be the last Monday of January. I don't have that in front of me, but it'll be at 6:30 here at City Hall.
I just want to mention the the Veterans Committee, we did go and talk to the Arts Council, and we're looking at a possible project down at Veterans Park in regards to, it's called Freedom Rock. It's giant boulders that are artwork that will be placed within the park. So we're gonna work with the Arts Council on that, and we'll know more in January how that relationship is gonna be. General business, Councilmember Cole.
Just received notification from the co-chair of the Park and Rec. The Fire and Ice has been canceled for this year. Evidently was done in a non-meeting, and it's done due to COVID. So I just needed clarity. It's like, I didn't miss the meeting, so. I just want to take just a couple seconds. This is, with no meeting in 2 weeks, this is the conclusion of year one for both Councilmember Wong and myself. Wow, a heck of a year. If this is normal, holy buckets, good luck, John. I want just to take a couple seconds to thank Dan for stepping into what you've stepped into mid-budget season, stepping up, bringing a lot of new and great ideas. Continued positive accolades to your staff. Your staff has done a fantastic job, and you've done a wonderful job as well as far as bringing praise to them as far as the council is concerned. Brian, I got no words, man. You stepped into a hell of a show and stepped up, and thank you. That's it. I'm done, man. The year's over with.
Good.
3 more years.
Councilmember Wong, wow.
Just one more update in regards to the committee and for the community center. We are looking for short-term at this time, and hopefully we'll see that on the agenda in January. As for other general business, I think, possibly reviving the Environmental Commission in 2022 could be a discussion for us. And then just want to, again, thank the staff for this wild year. I truly have no words, but it's been incredible to see everyone come together and work very fluidly and communicate and have a lot of trust. That's very evident, and you can see that in the morale and staff. So thank you all for all that you're doing. So, and Happy New Year.
Councilmember Peterson.
Yeah, I want to do a shout out to Rachel Thompson. She she adopted 20 families for Project Christmas Tree, and she would have gotten more, but it's limited. So she's got all the families she needs, and I think she's got a few tags that people could sign up for to give. And that's another way that the community is, giving back, because there are needs out there. We have the churches, and she's just a resident that decided to do this last year, and it was very successful. So thank you, Rachel.
And she was on TV again.
She was on TV, and it puts us on the spotlight, and that we're givers here. We're not takers. We're a good community of volunteers. This is a little off the cuff. Joe Emerson, White Bear Lake mayor, is retiring after 12 years. She's kind of my mentor, so I want to wish Joe a great retirement.
I thought I was your mentor.
Well, yeah, you are. You are. But I know she's always encouraged me, and when things were kind of rough here, she'd be my sounding board. So it was good to have that kind of a sisterhood. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
You're like the brother I didn't have. Okay.
Thank you.
The Centennial ribbon cutting was a great event. We all went, and it's a beautiful building. Very nice. There's people living there, and it's a very nice addition to our main street. And then I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, healthy New Year. Thank you.
Councilmember Thorson.
Yeah. Just like to echo the council's statements and thanks for Brian for stepping up in this role. You've done a great job, and thank you. As well as Officer Rosales when he stepped on as the interim police chief. And thanks to all our staff and our contracted work that we have, WSB, Campbell Knutson. We thank you for all the work that you do for the city. And thanks to Dan for stepping in and doing a good job and the finance department, so thank you. And Ron's in the back. Thanks for your work in the Public Works. I think that's everyone that's here. Oh, Carrie, thank you very much for all your work in the communications. Maybe you can get these mics figured out, though, huh? I mean, I think maybe it's time we just give up and get some new ones. And Jenny, thank you very much for all your work you do here. So being as this is the last meeting, we're just looking forward to a new year and wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Good. And I would concur with all the staff, the rock stars coming in and helping out through this year, because it was a difficult year for all of us, not only staff, but I believe the council itself. I welcome our new city manager. He'll be starting January 3rd. No one said thank you to our city attorney. Thank you for thank you for keeping us out of trouble, you know, so I just want to add that. But the holiday hop was this last week, and I did have the pleasure of walking with our new city manager down the avenue. He met a few new people. Thank you, Councilmember Cole, for joining us. But it was a good turnout downtown. I believe the trolley ride, I mean, I got to go on the trolley ride. It was fun. The Historical Society had a record amount of people in the Historical Society that day. Over 100 people went through. I guess I would like to just mention, my goals for next year is working with the council. Like Councilmember Wong said, let's work together. We're a team. Get trust, put trust in. And what I'd like to do also is have a workshop or retreat, as always. As sooner in January, the better. Like to work, possibly having the city attorney work with us, along with our new city manager, and working with all the committee chairs, just to get the roles of kind of what our committees and commissions do and how that relates to how the process works. We have a lot of questions throughout the year. I know some chairs have questions in regards to their role and how it relates to different items and how it's brought to the council. And so I'd like to have that as part of our retreat. If Soren, if you're able to be a part of that.
Sure. Yep.
That's all you got?
Just tell me when.
Okay. But I think that's been a kind of an issue in regards to some of the chairs and how it just relates to their role in regards to how it gets communicated to the city council.
Yeah, it's a good thing to every once in a while just do a level set and check in on these sorts of things to make sure that committees are kind of staying in their designated lanes. Sometimes there can be creep into other categories, and it's good to just say, here's the expectation from a council level. These committees ultimately do report to you, so they're a function of here's what we would like to see you be working on. Beyond that, one of the things I think I'd taken a note, there was a discussion about one of the committees going to Zoom meetings. That is something I'll talk to staff about tomorrow. The way we used to do it is not how we can do it going forward. The rules have changed a little bit on that. So I'll update staff on that also. But sometimes it is good to just check in, maybe even cover some of the basics, just a refresher on open meeting law, data practice, stuff like that. But yeah, whatever we think we need in terms of figuring that out, let me know.
Okay, good. Thank you. And I want to wish everybody a happy holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, and we'll see you in 2022. So at this time, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Nobody wants to
Second.
go. So moved by Councilmember Thorson,
Second.
second by Councilmember Wong. Any discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.